You're now live.
Right, Chairman, you're now live.
Okay, right. Well, welcome everyone to this Corporate Scrutiny Committee of Tuesday, the 12th of January 2021. I am working from home because I did not wish to go into County Hall. So if there are any glitches, please forgive us. I must thank the team at County Hall, as always, working their socks off, and thank them very much indeed. We are just waiting for a couple of people to join us. In the meantime, the members of the committee who are present are Councillor Debbie Andre, Councillor Stephen Hendry, Councillor John Hobart, are we in? No, not yet. Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, Councillor Chris Quirk, Councillor Michael Beston is deputising for Councillor Vanessa Churchman, and Councillor Paul Fuller is deputising for the Vice Chairman, Councillor Michael Lilly. We're waiting for Helena Houston and Sheila Weedall, who are our IWOC representatives and our Hampshire Association Local Councils representatives. Should my system go down so you can't see me, we need to choose someone who would take over being the chairman, and I would recommend that is done by Councillor Debbie Andre, and but we need a vote or a show of hands or a vote, or just call it out, of people's approval. So
I second that, Chairman, and for.
Right, that's Councillor James Evans. Are we all in agreement? Just say your name.
Chris Quirk for.
Chris Quirk, yes.
Paul Fuller for.
Paul Fuller, yes.
Michael Beston for.
Michael Beston, yes.
Stephen Hendry for.
Stephen Hendry for. Me, Richard Hollis, I'm for. So we are quorate on that. So that I think.
Councillor Debbie Andre, I accept the nomination. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Have we managed to get hold of Helena Houston or Sheila Weedall?
We're trying behind the scenes, Chairman. So
okay.
I would suggest we continue.
I think we still got a little bit of housekeeping to do anyway. The legislation allows us to hold these meetings remotely. Can you please turn mobile phones off, or as I say, remind you to turn them on after the meeting. Please allow a slight pause for speaking when you are called to speak. Allow technology to come in. You'll see it, your microphone to come on. Please only speak when you're asked to do so. And voting will be taken by a roll call, and the clerk will call your name, and it's either for or against or abstain. Thank you very much indeed. Now we move on to the minutes of the last meeting. I'd like to confirm the minutes of the last meeting held on the 10th of November.
I propose them, Chair.
Right, propose them. That's Julie Jones Evans.
Second them, Chris Quirk.
Chris Quirk seconded. Are we all in agreement? Anyone not in agreement? No, so we're all in agreement. Fine. Any matters arising from those minutes?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Andre here.
Right, Councillor Andre. Yep. Put your camera on.
Just a note on the minutes. On page 3, item 9. Sorry. Do forgive me. On page 11, it was agreed that we would be provided with updates at our next meeting, hence this meeting, on the Highways PFI contract and on the commercialisation strategy. Well, we do have the updates on the Highways PFI contract, but I note that the commercialisation strategy update is it's on our forward plan, but not until the 12th of October. Is there a reason for that it did not come to this meeting? There may well be a reason, but
Right. I'll ask the chief executive for that.
Chairman,
Mr. Thistlewood.
yes, if I can, obviously there's been a delay in getting an update due to officers being dealing with the COVID pandemic, and that's why it's been deferred until later on in the work plan, Chairman. But I don't know if the Chief Executive wants to give a further update.
Thank you, Chairman. If I may, I think I thought I may have said this at the previous meeting, but absolutely, our Assistant Chief Executive, who's been leading much of the response to COVID, is also responsible for the commercialisation strategy. So she's not been able to progress that, but equally, it's very hard to deliver the commercialisation strategy in the context of all the work we're trying to do around COVID, and where lots of the messages as we go through various lockdowns are stay at home. So the work is still there, it's still relevant, and we'll come back to it shortly.
Right.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Right. We'll then move on. Are there any declarations of interest?
Yes, Chairman. I've been talking to the monitoring officer, and
Yes.
I've been advised, and I'm happy to declare a personal interest in the Isle of Wight parking places item within the cabinet paper. As local member, I will be reflecting my local residents' views, and because of the significant feedback received, I am opposed to the seafront car parking charges contained wherein. Thank you.
Well, okay, we'll deal with that one. That's Councillor Paul Fuller. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Jones Evans. Yes, please. I'd just like to declare an interest specifically in the COVID recovery report, item 4, as I am a director of the Isle of Wight Chamber of Commerce.
Right. JJE. Any more? No. Right. Public question time. We have had two questions. It is not my personal meeting, it's a joint meeting between all of us. One, we have a written question from Tracy Mikic of Ryde. I better read this question out. We've been told to expect a nearly 4% rise in council tax this year. In the same breath, we're also informed that the island taxpayer money, millions of pounds, are still being spent on the floating bridge 6, despite Dave Stewart, the current Isle of Wight council leader, admitting in February 2019 that the bridge did not meet legal requirements and legal action was being taken. In addition, there was overwhelming professional and expert advice, primarily prepared and submitted by the Floating Bridge Stakeholders Group, that says the existing bridge will never be fit for purpose. The new bridge should be commissioned, and that the current situation is just throwing good money after bad. What measures are being put in place to protect the public purse to avoid islanders paying for the council's continued mismanagement of the floating bridge? And Councillor, well, there is a reply to that. I've had a response here that said that this matter is currently being subject to a legal process of mediation, which I know it is. Once this aspect has been addressed, the administration will be in a position to provide a full report and announce proposed next steps regarding the future of the floating bridge. Matters relating to council budget will be addressed at the full council meeting in February. Councillor Stewart, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you, Chair. Do you wish me to deal with my response under this, or to wait till item 4B on the agenda?
I think we'll wait till item 4B because we're going to keep that all together. But that's, I mean, we've had a response to that question, but it's obviously an ongoing thing. And I personally have done a lot of work looking into this, and it will come forward in due course. But because of the legal situation, we really can't discuss.
I can give when we get to item 4B, which is floating bridge, I'll give you a brief response. Which is
okay, fine. Thank you very much. The next question we have is from Simon Avery of Seaview, who says the CSP report is missing a key element that needs to be urgently addressed in order to give all young people the best possible chance to thrive in a safe environment. It does not list academies, trusts, schools or colleges as statutory partners, supporting partners or action groups. In doing so, it appears to overlook the role that schools play in potentially reducing crime and antisocial behaviour by 1, limiting the practice of exclusions, and 2, earlier identification of SEN. There is a direct relationship between school exclusions and rising youth knife crime. ADHD and ASD are also acknowledged risk factors for criminal behaviour. Last year, we saw 2 major knife incidents in Ryde and Cowes, with children as young as 14 involved. Given the evidence and significant impact on community safety, what measures could be implemented so the CSP incorporates a stratagem to reduce school exclusions and facilitate the earlier diagnosis of SEN? The response comes under 4 paragraphs, which I will read. The CSP is made up of statutory partners as mentioned in the assessment. Schools do not form part of that statutory arrangement. However, they are linked in with a number of work streams and, as quite rightly stated within the question, do play a role in reducing crime and antisocial behaviour. With this in mind, the partnership have increased its working relationship with schools over the last 2 years and involve them in aspects of work where possible. For example, through the Violence Reduction Unit, VRU, funded interventions, where 2 education establishments are able to refer young people into tailored interventions. More recently, local schools have had the opportunity for external education intervention around knife crime and exploitation, which has been positively received by young people, teachers and parents. These are just 2 examples. It is important to note that although there is a link between school exclusions and a likely increase in risk-taking behaviour or involvement in the criminal justice system, knife position or knife crime is not an overriding result of an exclusion. It is often due to a number of external factors and/or adverse childhood experiences that can lead to an individual or young person being involved in this type of activity. The Safeguarding Citizens Partnership run an education subgroup chaired by the school's improvement manager, who regularly review attendance and exclusion data. The attendance and exclusion data also forms part of the Performance and Quality Assurance Group, PQA. The link has been made between community safety and the aforementioned group and SEN team. Does anyone, any cabinet member wish to comment on that, or the chief executive? No, right. So those are those 2 questions.
Chairman, I
yes?
believe Councillor Peace wants to come in on that matter.
Oh, Councillor Peace, right, Councillor Peace.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Not really a comment on this statement. It was a very thorough and long statement, but you do have Amanda Gregory, who will be speaking with you, speaking to the committee later. So I'm sure she can probably fill in any further details at that point.
Yes, my apologies. I can't see everyone. So right, we've been joined by Sheila Weedle. Welcome to you, Sheila. If you could just turn your camera off, just because the technology doesn't allow everyone to have the cameras on. That's lovely. If you wish to speak at any time, put something in the meeting chat, and then you can turn your camera on again. Right. Okay. I have to just read through the meeting chat line as well. Quite a lot to do. Right. Updates on current issues. COVID-19 response and recovery, and to consider a verbal update from the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Strategic Finance and COVID-19 recovery and the Chief Executive. Who wants to go first on this or deal with this one?
Shall I kick off first,
Councillor Stuart Hutchinson, yes.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I can't do very much more other than repeat what I said to the Neighbourhoods and Regen Scrutiny Committee, which met on Thursday last week, because obviously little has changed. The overview really is that obviously we've got 4 elements within the COVID recovery. And we said this right at the beginning when we prepared the very detailed report which went to Cabinet, which looked at the next 3 months, the next 6 months, and then 12 months. Well, obviously that 3 months initial response has been very much affected by this 3rd wave. This wave, as we know, is so big, it's more like a tidal wave than an ordinary wave. So we have been doing some work prior to Christmas, and I'll just touch on a few points and then look at the overview. We've been approved by DWP as a Kickstart provider, so we've got 40 positions for young people to come on stream, providing help for our social care staff. We've managed 60 applications for the Green Homes Grant. We sponsored some pop-up shops in Newport prior to Christmas in partnership with the Newport and Carisbrooke Community Council. We introduced free parking for the Christmas period, which gave shopping a boost, but inadvertently may have contributed to the spike that we now have. We've been doing some work to support greater mental health and well-being work. We've promoted the Island gift card. We've put in place some new business advisors helping to access the COVID support funds, and we've just put up on our website details of an application form and the necessary elements for businesses to access the new funding that has come on stream since change in tiers. So we've done a lot of individual, relatively small things, but I have to say, in terms of the overall recovery, we are not moving into the stage that we would have wished to get to when we looked at this back in November and early December. We had sort of 4 elements of dealing with the COVID pandemic: response, then containment, then gradual emergence, and then putting things in place for a full recovery. Now, we had moved out of the response phase into containment and were hoping to move into emergence. But of course, with this latest 3rd lockdown, we're back in response and containment. We're working really hard to try and contain the numbers, but it isn't, of course, just the Island Council. This requires everybody on the island to follow exactly what the government is doing. We have noticed that quite a lot of people are putting their own interpretation on things to suit what they want to do. So I think the full recovery that we had anticipated in the plan that we published is going to take weeks, months longer than we had originally anticipated. We will be preparing, of course, a full report to the Health and Wellbeing Committee, which is the committee that oversees this plan, and they have a meeting in a couple of weeks' time, and we'll give all the latest detail then. So we are in an extremely difficult position. None of us expected that we would be going slightly backward in terms of the numbers, and that's the current place we're in. Thank you, Chairman.
Do you have anything to add, Mr. Metcalfe?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. If I may, I think there's probably 3 or 4 things just to sort of bring the committee up to speed on in terms of our response. I mean, clearly, as members will be aware, we're now in national lockdown, and having been in tier 1 only in November, then moved to 3, 4, and now into national lockdown, it's been particularly challenging, I think, for everybody to try and keep up with the pace of that particular change. I think we know in terms of the number of cases on the island over a 7-day period, they are increasing. So on the 6th of January, the 7-day rate was about 1,100 cases per 100,000. So that's new cases of COVID confirmed, something like 1,600 cases in the course of a 7-day period, which is quite considerable. We do know that the increase is driven by the new variant of the virus, which I think we saw before Christmas, started in Kent and has generally moved from east to west across the south of the country. And I think recent data just published by government would seem to indicate that about 90% of the cases on the island are down to the new variant. We know it's about 70% more transmissible, and we know that about 1 in 3 people who have COVID actually have no symptoms of COVID, so they may not know they've got it, which is really important, I think, in terms of how we act and how we behave in order to get the virus back under control. I think where we are now, we're probably starting to see the peak effect of people mixing over the Christmas holiday as well. So I think that's putting pressure into the system at the moment. And in about 7 days' time, we'll start to see the effect of people mixing over New Year, although of course that wasn't permitted. From a testing perspective, Chairman, members may be interested that we've also secured a new mobile testing unit. So whilst we've still got our testing facility at New Close, we've also got another facility now at Medina, which is a mobile unit, can do an additional 300 tests a week. So we've got a lot of activity around testing, and testing shouldn't be difficult for people to get hold of. I think our key message around testing is that anybody who has any symptom whatsoever, no matter how slight, should self-isolate and should get a test on the basis of the fact, as I say, 1 in 3 people don't show any symptoms whatsoever. Members will be interested, I'm sure, in vaccination. The programme is being led by the NHS and steered through NHS Southern Region and then NHS nationally. It's been delivered on the island through our primary care networks and the hospital hub. So we've got 4 primary care sites that are being used at the moment for the delivery of the vaccination programme: Carisbrooke, West Wight Sports Centre, Westridge and Shanklin. And we know there's a further site coming online towards the end of the month as well. So again, we're moving up the activity around vaccinations, as I say, but led by the NHS teams. Businesses just should report to members that we launched yesterday our support for business website again. So all of the schemes announced by government are now live on the website for people to apply to. There's an awful lot of them because, as I said earlier, as we moved through tier 1, tier 3, tier 4, there were different schemes available in different tiers, and now there's further money available as part of the national lockdown, and people just need to make sure that they read the right guidance before making any applications. I think just to close, Chairman, there are about 5 key messages that we are trying to promote at the moment and trying to encourage our community to follow. So the first one, in terms of the national message about national lockdown, is stay at home. So wherever possible, people are encouraged to stay at home wherever they can and only make trips for essential activities or for work if they're unable to work from home. I think our second message would be that we encourage people to act as if they've got the virus. It is so contagious, it is so virulent. So even if you haven't got it, you almost need to act as if you've got it, and anybody that you come into contact with, act as if they've got it. So make sure you give them lots of space, you're wearing face coverings, and that you are out in the open air if at all possible if you come into contact with people, and then good hand hygiene is absolutely critical. I would stress that all parts of the public sector are under considerable pressure at this time, and also the independent health and care sector. What we are seeing, of course, is as the virus is spreading through the community, staff are being absent because they're getting ill and they're having to self-isolate. So that's putting considerable pressure onto the public sector bodies in terms of how they respond and how they help the community. I think the final 2 points I would make, or final point I would really make, is that the way that we're going to get the virus back under control is through the behaviour of people. The organisations can't fix that at the moment. It's something that jumps from person to person. It travels from person to person. So I think we'd encourage everybody to follow the guidelines to the absolute letter. Make sure that they give lots of space, stay at home, and hopefully we'll get the island back into the good position that we were in right up until the end of November. And I'm very confident that we'll do that, because I know that people were really compliant right up until that particular point. Yeah. And I think we've just been knocked sideways by this new variant. Chairman, very happy to take questions, and of course Wendy Pereira is on the line, the Assistant Chief Executive, who can add some detail if required.
Right. I've got a question. Councillor James Evans wants to ask a question or comment to make a question. Councillor James Evans.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm just really picking up on what Councillor Hutchinson said, that we did have a good discussion about the COVID response at the Neighbourhoods and Environment Scrutiny Committee on Thursday. Just wanted to pick up on one bit of an update from there. I did talk about the number of devices that have been given out to children, and I'm happy to say that there was an update in the press yesterday where Councillor Brading gave the updated figures, where it's about 4 times as much as I was led to believe at the weekend. So there's about 1,600, I believe, devices have been given out. So that might be useful update for everybody. I do have a question regarding children. It's been obviously the hot topic of the last 2 days, and that is the free school meal parcels that have been about, photographs have been shockingly all around social media all day today, nationally. I just wondered if anyone was on the call that was able to update on the Isle of Wight situation. We've actually got some very good food distribution on the island with the Isle of Wight Food Bank, who are experts in poverty alleviation, and I'd hate to think that our local families were getting these meagre portions that didn't offer value for money, as the government are very strict on the value for money and the nutrition and the amount of food that each child is supposed to get. So I just wonder if anyone could update me on what the Isle of Wight situation is, please.
Chairman, do you want me to come in?
Yes, please. Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, thank you. I know it's not so much of an update. I'm a little bit confused as to why we've got a question from a member of the committee to do with school meals when we're not on that item in the agenda. I noticed there is a members' questions element. I think it's at the end of the meeting. Just wonder if we can follow that process.
If I could just explain why, Councillor Stewart, because we're in lockdown and
chair.
I beg your pardon?
I was talking to the chair, sorry.
All right. I think what happened is that Councillor James Evans' question sort of followed on the COVID theme, but it might be better actually if we had the question, if we related it to schools towards the end of the meeting. Would you be happy with that?
Well, I just specifically because we're in lockdown and children are at home and not receiving their school meals, they're having to have packs at home. So it directly relates to COVID response.
Yes. Now we're okay. Right, Mr. Metcalfe, put your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I can certainly get the member further information, but the information that I had this morning was that we've not had any particular complaints about the food packages and parcels and systems that we've put together on the island. I think we're looking to enhance that as we go into the next couple of months, but the skills are working very well with that particular issue. But we can get some further information for the member later. But as I am briefed this morning, we've not had any complaints about the school vouchers on the island.
Right.
Thank you very much, Chen. That's very reassuring. I'll let my residents know who've been contacting me.
Right. Okay. Councillor Brading, did you want to make a comment on that?
Yes, if I can, Chair, if you allow me to. Yes, please. We've had no issues on the island raised with us from any of our parents or any of our children. I believe the Minister has made an announcement this morning that the free school meals is imminent. But in the meantime, all catering companies have issued a clear guidance as to what food they need to supply in parcels, and the DfE are investigating the story that is doing the rounds. Of course, we've also got all of our other Connect for Communities grant schemes out there for people to go to if they need help, but there's no issues on the island to concern us at this stage.
Right, thank you very much indeed. I've got a question from Councillor Carl Love, who says, who's chairing the meeting? I am, but I do like to allow a certain amount of freedom. Councillor Beeston wants to question to John Metcalfe.
Thank you, Chairman. Just rewinding back to the vaccinations, John, and many thanks for the update. And it's very reassuring to hear of the new mobile centre and the extended hours, etc. The UK has rolled out around about 2.7 million vaccines so far to date, which is extremely good and probably one of the leading figures across Europe at the moment. There was talk last week of, and we don't have a vaccination tracker for the UK. That particular one is run by Bloomberg, which covers the whole of the world. Now, there was talk last week of a vaccination tracker for the Isle of Wight. And I know, and as I intimated at my policy and scrutiny last week, I think there's quite an appetite for people to get some real figures on where the vaccine's been rolling out across not just UK, but of course the Isle of Wight as well. So I'm just wondering if you could make any comment on that. Thank you.
Mr. Metcalfe.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm afraid I've got no information on the delivery of an Isle of Wight tracker just at this moment in time. As I said at the start, the programme is led by the NHS and we're reliant on the data coming from the NHS. I understand from my conversations with them earlier this week that their plan is to start to release national data on a daily basis, which is what the government has started to do, and they expect to release more localised data in the coming 2 or 3 weeks. But at the moment, as a council, we don't have access to any data, and the data is with the NHS. It's held NHS centrally, not even NHS regionally. So at the moment, we know that there's a positive number of things being vaccinated, people being vaccinated, but we don't have the absolute numbers. Although I do share your sentiment about needing those numbers so that we can build confidence in both the vaccination programme and also as a means of encouraging people to stay in lockdown, because there is a real reason for doing it, because the vaccination is just around the corner for us all. Thank you, Chair.
Right. I have one thing that someone has contacted me it's about the ferries, and I think it is relevant. They said when they went on the ferry, food is being served, people sitting around, close contact, no masks, and that may well be, that seems to be contrary to, they felt it was contrary to safe distancing. And also, it's something that I took up earlier in the year with the ferries companies through, I contacted both the chief executives of both ferry companies, and that is whether people can stay in their cars. Could we ask that the chief executive or someone goes back to the ferry companies and just finds out what the latest situation is with staying in cars? Because it does seem logical to stay in a car since we have such a virulent form of COVID for someone who's on the ferry. Mr. Metcalfe.
If I may respond, Chairman, at the moment, people are still able to stay in cars on certain crossings, but they do need to make arrangements in advance before they travel with the ferry operator. That is all determined by the Marine Maritime, the MCA, the regulatory body. I forget the acronym. It's all determined by the regulatory body, and it relates to what the ferries are carrying at the time. But they do still, if you do make arrangements in advance, then you can remain in your car. As to the earlier comment, if you could provide us with the further dates of the crossing and the time, then we can discuss that with the ferry companies. But we have been in very close dialogue with them about all of these arrangements, and we've not found too many challenges as you described, but clearly as there are fewer ferry crossings at the moment, then some of the ferry crossings are more full than they might otherwise have been.
Yes, okay. Just very quickly, because we're running a bit late on this item, another question from Councillor Jones Evans. Do you have another question?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, it was just something that Councillor Hutchinson said about the possible transmission during the the shopping period, with the free parking and so on. I'm just wondering about the social distancing, because especially obviously I remember Central Newport, are very, very narrow pavements and the increased amount of people. Of course, we didn't have any social distancing measures, as in what wider pavements and so on, as the government recommended with the task force back in May. There was a lot of work I did back in May on that. And I was just wondering, are we looking at reintroducing some social distancing measures in town at all, or are we've sort of passed that point now?
Councillor Hutchinson, or someone?
The problem we've got, and the information we get through our Director of Public Health, is that because of the increased transmissibility of the new variant, there has been discussion as to whether 2 meters should be the minimum. How we actually get people to comply with that, but we had notices out before saying stay 2 meters apart. We painted dots on the pavement. Most people were very careful. The big problem is that there was then a substantial element of the population that didn't seem to know what 2 meters was, or that it only applied in certain circumstances. So there are lots of myths going around that you've got to be in someone's company for 15 minutes before. It's much more virulent than that. So I think the difficulty with the kind of barriers that you're alluding to, Julie, is that if we want to keep to new measures, the barriers might even have to be even further obtrusive. And it really has to be down, as everybody is saying, from Prime Minister downwards, has to be down to individual responsibility. And we haven't yet got that across to everybody. As the Chief Exec alluded to earlier, about 1 in 3 of the population don't even know they've got it. We have seen how quickly it can spread. So we are going to take some further action to remind people to stay at home and to stay safe and to keep their distance. It would not surprise me if the government put in place legal requirements for face masks in far more places than are currently required. Very often the bigger supermarkets, as we know, I think Morrison's is one of them, has said you can't come in without a mask. We need that to happen for the smaller shops as well. And it has to be individual responsibilities to do it. We can't crack it any other way. It is now so virulent and so prevalent across the whole of our community. We've seen ourselves shoot up in numbers from only in tier 1 with the new variant attacking us to shooting up to the high levels. Parts of the island are in the top level. The eastern part of the island is very badly affected, the western part less so, but we're all in exactly the same position. So I understand what you're saying, but I really at a loss to think what we can do to actually make people behave properly. All of the people, 90% of the people are doing really well. It's that small number, some of whom still think there's no virus out there.
Yeah,
Okay.
as a business owner myself, it's been quite stressful at times to remind people coming into your businesses about masks, and some people react badly, some people just forget. It's a bit extra big pressure on small businesses as well. I guess regarding social distancing, we just have to see how we come out of this and what the situation is there. So I guess we'll just keep a watching brief on that, will we, Councillor Hutchinson?
Right.
We will, and we would expect that massive spike that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, which to some extent we're expecting following the relaxed rules over Christmas. I would expect to see that spike reducing, but it is still a very high number of people that have got it. As the Chief Executive has said, we're rolling out vaccination as fast as we can, and that really is going to be the only way out of this pandemic. Thank you, Chairman.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. if the committee agree, I'd like to move on from this one now, if we can. And the next item is Cowes Floating Bridge, and we need an update from the Director of Neighbourhoods and Cabinet Member for Transport and Infrastructure. So who would like to go first?
I'll deal with this, Chair, if that's okay.
All right, Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you very much. So this is building on to the your initial comments, actually. And what I'm about to say, the 4 points I'm going to make have been put past our legal advisors as well. So first point, the whole question of the design, build and performance of Floating Bridge 6 is currently subject of legal action through mediation. The second point is that whilst the council has submitted a substantial claim for consideration in this matter, it is not appropriate for me or members of my cabinet to discuss this matter further, pending the outcome of those actions. The third point is that I hope these actions will be resolved shortly, and if so, I shall be in a position to provide a report to Scrutiny at the next meeting in February. And fourthly, with regard to the comments from a range of individuals as to why I have not brought to public attention the fact that the Floating Bridge 6 was designed, built and paid for under the previous administration, again, I do not wish to make comment on this aspect until legal actions are concluded. And that would therefore probably be the limit of our conversation on it today.
Right. And when you talk about actions, you're referring to legal actions all the way through, aren't you?
That's correct, Chair.
Yes, right. I know that this will, if the legal situation has followed its course, I'm sure that in February this will be a major item on the agenda. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any more comment on this?
Chair, it's Laura, as the ward member. Could I please ask three brief questions?
Councillor P.C. Wilcox, be delighted you can. Whether they can be answered might be a different matter.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Chair. I see that we've just been given notification that there's yet another replacement on the hydraulic hose and underneath the west prow. Could you please let me know what the results of the pressure gauge is on the ramps? We noticed that it was overloading when it was docking, and I was informed that pressure gauges would be fitted. I wonder if you've got the results of those. The second question is, at the last meeting I was promised more details about the project board minutes and information, and I've still not received those. And the third question is, where are we with the decision to fit side thrusters, or has an alternative decision been made? Thank you very much.
Councillor Stewart, do you want to, are you going to, can you
yes,
answer?
Chair. Well, I can deal with them. There may not be the answers at this time that Councillor P.C. Wilcox wants. Pressure gauges, a very technical question. I will ask officers to send to her the information she requires, which should be made available to update on that aspect. The project board minutes, I'm just wondering which project board minutes, because there's been a number of meetings. If she could just be a bit more specific, we can make that happen as well. No need to do that this evening. And the side thrusters form part of the legal action, so I can't comment on that at this time.
Right.
Thank you, Chair. That's fine. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councillor P.C. Wilcox. I'm sorry we can't. There can't be a sort of a more definitive answer than that, or expanded answer. But it's very difficult when things are in a legal situation. Councillor Jones-Evans, you had a question.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Stewart, for your statement. It was just really a matter of clarification, really. So so it sounds like you're hopeful that there's going to be a legal agreement within the month that you will be able to report back to members. Is that my understanding? It'll be a culmination of all of the legal ongoings that have been going for the last 3 years.
Legal action continues as I've described in my first bullet point through mediation. Clearly, I can't comment beyond that because the mediation has not been concluded. I'm just trying to give Scrutiny a guide.
So we'll have an update in February. That's what you're saying then, basically.
I will give an update in February, but I don't know what the update will be.
Okay. It's getting a bit like Jarndyce and Jarndyce, isn't it?
Well, we are subject to legal action, and any professional body such as the Isle of Wight Council needs to follow that process and not deal with it in a way that undermines the council or indeed the public's financial interest.
Right. Councillor Andre, you comment.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to clarify and pick up on one of the points that my colleague Councillor PC Wilcox put forward. In terms of the project boards, it's on page 8 of the minutes of the last meeting. Members also requested details of the other project boards that have been established to oversee projects. And as far as I'm aware, details of those other project boards have not been forthcoming to this committee, Chairman. I hope that adds clarity.
All right, we will chase that up. Who wants to deal with that?
Well, I think I'll take you back, Chair, to just a little bit of clarity. It will be required. The council has many different project boards. It has a project board for the waste contract. It has a project board for the PFI contract, which you're going to hear about today. It has a project board for the floating bridge. It has a members review board. So there are quite a range of boards within the council, which is how we manage council business. But if I take the assumption we're referring to the floating bridge
specifically,
then that's fine, and I can arrange for those minutes that are available to be provided, and perhaps I would suggest that should go through the Chief Executive.
Right, okay. Thank you very much on that. We will then move on, if we may, to the Isle of Wight Community Safety Partnership Annual Report. I ask Amanda Gregory if you'd like to report on that, please. And welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening to you and to the rest of the Scrutiny Committee. Thank you for inviting the Community Safety Partnership to the Scrutiny this evening. Just to introduce myself, I am Amanda Gregory and I am the chair of the current Community Safety Partnership on the Isle of Wight. My day job is also for the Isle of Wight Council, and I am the Strategic Manager for Community Safety and Regulatory Services. Just to let you know, Chairman, tonight we do have on the call some of our other statutory partners this evening. I'll just go through a list of the organisations we also have represented who might be able to answer some of the questions which may be posed by the committee this evening. We have representatives from the Service Inclusion, which is the Drug and Alcohol Service. We have Sarah Jackson, who is a District Commander from Hampshire Constabulary. We have Nikki Shave, who is here from the Youth Offending Team. Gordon Pownell, who's here from the CCG, Beverly Fryer, here on behalf of Mental Health and Learning Disabilities from the NHS Trust. We have Katie Hayward, who is from Sovereign Housing Association, Barbara Sawyer from the Community Rehabilitation Company and Probation, and Abigail Wilkinson, who is our analyst, who was working on our strategic assessment for us. So just to give an overview of the Community Safety Partnership, it's a legal entity which we are obliged to set up, and it consists of several organisations working together to reduce crime, reduce reoffending, reduce antisocial behaviour, and to ensure that people feel safe. It's a requirement that the partnership produces a strategic assessment every year to provide a summary of research and analysis around community safety to enable identification of priorities for the partnership and those organisations. The Police and Justice Act 2006 places a duty on local authorities to have a crime and disorder committee to review and scrutinise the decisions made in connection with the discharge of our requirement on these functions. It is the purpose of the Corporate Scrutiny Committee today to have a look at the strategic assessment of the Community Safety Partnership and the report that goes with it. Acknowledge the updated plan, which is 2020 to 2022, and confirm it's satisfied that the partnership is fulfilling its statutory duty. I'm not going to go through the full strategic assessment or the full report, but just to highlight a few things. The assessment data year that we're looking at is 2019 to 2020. So particularly with COVID-19, which may come up in topic this evening, that assessment will not take into account the effect of COVID-19. However, there are some early indications brought about by COVID-19, which we are looking at as a community safety partnership. So this would include areas like domestic abuse, which you will see are some of our priority areas as well. And it is important to note that the CSP has been operating throughout the COVID-19 situation to deal with emerging issues and also to focus on our priorities. As I said, the data refers to 2019 to 2020. So when we refer to last year's or previous year's data, it will refer to the year previous to that. The data has come from a range of sources that you will see in the report, including the Police and Crime Commissioner's Interact dataset, as well as the individual agencies, Office for National Statistics and Public Health. Due to the wide range of data from different sources, figures don't always cross-correlate to each other, and they might not correlate with previous year's data. That's just to do with perhaps some of the local reporting levels and nationally published data, and then changes in how data is being recorded. Just some key notes from the themes which are emerging. Just in general, the overview of crime on the Isle of Wight. Isle of Wight is a safe place to live, work and visit. Crime rates per 1,000 of the population are at 70.4 compared to the national average, which is 88.9 per 1,000. This is a decreasing trend from 72.4 in 2018-19, which was the previous year. Incidents of antisocial behaviour have seen a reducing trend over the last 3 years. With 559 fewer reported incidents in 2019-20 compared to the previous year. The perception of crime on the island. This year we've utilised national available data sets from YouGov and Survey 500 to gain an insight into perception of safety, which showed that 88% of the Isle of Wight felt safe in their community. That's higher than the Hampshire average of 73%, but very similar to previous figures that we've got from locally sourced data when we've undertaken community safety surveys on the Isle of Wight. Reducing violent crime has been a priority focus for the Community Safety Partnership, and the assessment shows that violence with injury and most serious violence has seen a reduction in 2019-20. However, we still remain slightly higher than the English national average for this crime type. You may see in the report that we have in the last year put in place a violent crime reduction unit, which has been established and funded from the Home Office to address drivers for serious violence in under 25s. And we did mention this in answer to the question which was posed earlier in the meeting. In 2019 to 2020, 120 young people benefited from the positive interventions funded through that work stream, and this will continue into this year. Some of these young people have been at risk of being involved in the criminal justice system, and through positive activities are diverted away. And this is one of the real key drivers for this violent crime reduction unit, is capturing them and turning them away from the criminal justice system as quickly and as early as possible. Domestic abuse is one of the other priorities for the CSP, which I have just mentioned in relation to the COVID-19 situation. The strategic assessment shows us that locally there is a growing trend in domestic abuse, which can be attributed to a number of factors. Some of this, for example, can be attributed to changes in reporting, as seen with the Home Office counting rules, in relation to harassment, malicious communications and stalking, which are now recorded as separate offences. In addition to this, we're also seeing greater confidence in reporting of these offences from those who have been affected. We also have as a priority, and the Community Safety Partnership coordinates the Domestic Abuse Forum, which continues to deliver against its action plan to prevent domestic abuse, deliver effective services for victims, and to understand local needs and priorities for future planning. I've just done a very brief overview of the main drivers in the community strategic assessment and our partnership plan. Obviously, we have myself on the line today, our partners and our data analyst, who is happy to answer any specific questions that Scrutiny Committee might have. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you very much indeed. I've got Chris Quirk who wants to ask a question, please. And then East Beston.
Thank you very much. On pages 40 and 41 of the report, we have three examples of where police have had short bursts of activity on a particular item, and the statistics have gone up dramatically. Does this suggest that there's actually, if you look for the crime, there will be a lot more of it?
Apologies, which page are you on, sorry?
So on our papers, it's on page 40 and 41. I'm not sure what that is on the original document. Page 22 and 23 of the original document.
Oh, blimey.
On those two pages, there are three examples of where it says police activity in this area may have increased the statistics. And that suggests that if you kept it there all the time, maybe you would find more of this.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I am struggling to find the relevant page.
I'll read the passages.
Okay.
Compared to 2018-19, reported drug offences have seen an increase of 69 crimes to 383 in total. This reflects in part a local focus on police activity in this area. Further down, talking about possession of weapons, this is in part due to an increase in police activity in this area. On the next page, this proactive week of action led to a number of positive results, which would have contributed to the increase in reported offences. So if we're having bursts of activity that are influencing the statistics, if we did it all the time, would the statistics actually be a lot higher?
Yes, I suppose there could be, there certainly could be that. I think what the partnership does look to do is we have strategic priorities, so there may be activity bursts to raise awareness and to encourage reporting. So it is hoped that obviously some of these will be sustained further, depending on what those key interventions are and what we're trying to achieve. I don't know whether it's looking at the data, whether it might be something we can bring Sarah in on because they related to specific police activities. I know Sarah was having trouble with Teams that she could only dial in on the telephone, so I'm not.
Is Sarah there? No. John Metcalf, you want to comment?
Thank you, Chairman. I wonder if it's perhaps something we could put a bit more detail to outside of the meeting, but I think my understanding is a lot of the activity is intelligence led. So whilst Councillor Quirk would be quite right to suggest that if you have more activity, then you're going to find more things, where it's intelligence-led, it's kind of based on what's actually happening in a particular area, and therefore I don't think you can make a straight correlation between more activity equals more things that you're going to find, and that's very much the way that both the police and the safety partnership have worked over a period of time. I hope that helps the member, but as I say, if it requires anything more detail on it, we can take it outside of the meeting.
Okay, right, Councillor Best.
Can I have a supplementary there as well?
Oh yes.
Are we talking about the forward plan part as well? There's a section that's the community strategic assessment, and there's another bit that's the forward plan of it. Just on the delivery plan for 2022, we've got outcomes, but we don't actually quantify any of the outcomes. So if you just get a 1% improvement, that would show as an improvement, but shouldn't we have some actual targets here? It would seem more appropriate to actually target what we're trying to do and to what we're trying to achieve.
Right.
Yes,
sorry, I've got a comment here from Abigail Wilkinson.
Abby is our analyst.
Yes, and it says this is why the police recorded figures are not national stats. Do we want to just bring Abigail in to explain that, or
maybe if you can get us to explain that, because I don't understand what that means.
Hello, hi everyone. Sorry,
yes.
I just wrote that in just as a little bit of clarity to do, because if Sarah's not on the line, to do with police data. Nationally, police data is not classed as a national statistic because it can reflect an increase in police activity. So nationally, they do a mixture of the crime survey for England and Wales, which is reported through a survey of people's experiences of crime, and then they do the police recorded figures as well. But locally we've almost done the same with that, where people feeling safe is through our surveys, and then we've used the police recorded figures to show offence detail. But you're right, it can reflect an increase in activity in an area, whether that's driven because of intelligence or whatever. The police will be able to help you with that, but it isn't a national statistic for that reason. So nationally, we wouldn't use police recorded crime data solely to understand crime nationally.
Okay.
Hopefully that helps a bit.
Right. Have we dealt with that question now, Councillor Quirk?
Chairman, if I could come in on the outcome, which was the additional question. I think in general, with the Community Safety Partnership, we are looking at trends and we are looking at themes, and we do look at data. However, we do have to be cautious at saying, right, we're going to aim for a 5% reduction in the data. As Abby will probably say, and what I did mention it in the data that we're looking at, that data doesn't always directly correlate year on year. So we can't look at data for, say, 2 years ago for a specific aspect of violent crime and say, right, we're going to reduce that aspect of violent crime by 5% in 2 years, because the way it's recorded may change in that 2 years. So that's why predominantly our outcomes will look at themes and sort of reductions rather than very specific outcome based in terms of percentage reduction or number reduction. Does that explain that better?
Yeah, I can buy that.
Right. Okay. The next question is from Michael Beston.
Thank you, Chairman. Amanda, so I'm looking at page 48, and it refers to reoffending adults, which might be number 30 on your documents. But I'll read it out verbatim if you like, and there's a question to follow. And page 48, the most reoffending data indicates that just over 31% of adults offend on the Isle of Wight, compared to a UK average of just over 29%. The CRC focuses on not only holding people to account for their actions, but on supporting rehab. And there are some offenders that there are some problems, I beg your pardon, there are some problems offenders may face that include. So there's two there. So homelessness, and that's been identified at just over 20%. Unemployment or unavailable for work at just over 50%. So my question, I'm just trying to get an understanding of what that means and try to identify the key drivers of reoffending in adults. The statistics for drug and alcohol misuse, health issues and debt seem to be omitted. So is there a correlation between any or any specific circumstances that make adults reoffend, please? Thank you.
Okay, so I would probably have to go to maybe Abigail or the CRC and probation to answer specifically about those correlations. As a community safety partnership, we're looking at that is a theme that we need to address, and that is one of our priorities. So from this, the way that the partnership will approach it, if it explains a little bit better, that we have leads who will look at that reducing reoffending strategy, and then bring the partners in to actually look at that and then make priorities of how we're going to improve that. So I know that doesn't answer your question about what are those specific correlations, as the partnership is around working together to try and look at where those issues are and work as a partnership to improve it. So I don't know whether Abigail is able to talk about the correlation, because obviously Abby does the data analysis on it, or whether Barbara is able to come in on that at all about specific correlations, but it might be something we have to take outside of this. In general, the partnership is looking about themes to work together on to make improvements.
Yeah, I can.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, it's just Abby. Do you want me to wait?
I don't know. Do you have the answer to that, Abby?
I don't have the answer to it because all I've got is what was available to me in this document, which I've written to, but I'm quite happy to go away and do some more detailed analysis on this, and also work with our CRC partners to get that. If you could word the question for me clearly, so I definitely know what you need, I can go away and work on that for you. Absolutely.
Yes, I think what we'll do is if Councillor Beston words that, and then outside this meeting, and then gets that to you, and then we can get the answer there. I've got two more councillors, or two more people, sorry, who want to ask or make a point or two. Councillor Jones Evans.
Sorry, Chairman, it's Superintendent Sarah Jackson. Can you hear me now? I've been trying to get back in.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's right. You're in, so we know you're in now. Okay.
Fantastic.
Councillor
Sorry,
Jones Evans.
I apologise for interrupting.
That's all right.
Oh, brilliant. Nice to hear you, Sarah. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you very much, Amanda, for the report. I mean, there's so much data in here, and it makes very interesting reading and quite sobering at times as well. Just want to pick up as a few points I'd like to make, or questions, Chair, if you would just bear with me. Firstly, I wanted to pick up on the question that was raised by the member of the public regarding the role of education. I think it is really important, especially the undiagnosed SCN. I raise this because I've got a personal experience with this, and my godson was excluded from school while he was awaiting his SCN diagnosis. Eventually, it was ADHD, but he went on a crime spree, committing 22 offences in a few weeks while I was excluded from school, and this caused a hell of a lot of problems, you can imagine, not only with his own family but in the community. And it's 30% of our prison population has got ADHD, yet it's only 5% of our whole population. So I think there is this direct correlation between these SCN diagnoses and young people going into crime. And when you look at the results of your the public survey, it's drug and not alcohol based related crime, antisocial behaviour and violent crime. And I think I'm right in saying somewhere in there it sort of gives that these are probably perpetrated by people in the younger age bracket. So I think it's something we really need to look at. And when we set up the bus station group, which was, as you probably remember, it was a couple of years ago when we were having all the lot of trouble around McDonald's and we're in the centre of town, and that was really, really successful. It was a multi-agency a group that got together, but every time there were so many questions about education, there was no one there from education. So that link, I think, is really, really, really important.
Yep.
So that's my first question. Chair, would you allow me two others after we've responded to that?
If you can make them sort of as brief as possible, because
yes, I can. Yes, but would you, if you want to do them one at a time, or is that better?
Do it with one at a time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we did provide a response to the original question, which the chairman read out at the beginning, so that there are links with the education. Obviously, the partnership is key. One of the key things is looking at reducing crime and disorder. So I do understand those links. What we also do as a partnership is work with the other partnerships. So we work with the Children's Safeguarding Partnership, and we also work with the Adult Safeguarding Board. So there are some areas, particularly education, which will appear more in the Children's Safeguarding Partnership, that we wouldn't duplicate that work, we would work alongside them. And I think, you know, just to provide reassurance that we are looking at various aspects of issues which underpin why someone commits crime, and that is something which is pushed forward in the partnership as we are looking at, say, like the Violent Crime Reduction Unit, and the strategies around reducing violent crime, and that specifically is in the under 26 age group, and that is something where we can look at that as well in conjunction with the Children's Safeguarding Partnership.
Thank you. That'd be really helpful if we can have those updates. I think obviously the statistics out there really show there's that correlation. So my second question, Chair, it's on page 36 of the report, page 54 of our papers, right at the top there. Talk about antisocial behaviour. Over 80% of ASB incidents do not have any additional information attached to the record. Only 20% do. Now, it's very interesting, you know, the data that is attached, but it makes me sort of really wonder. It's very hard to draw any proper conclusions and get an action plan if you don't have any qualifying statements. So that to me seems to be something that we need to pick up on. We can't just assume that, you know, out of all of them, they're going to be a fifth are going to be youth related, it's going to be drug related. So I just want to know why they aren't attaching the qualifiers.
And it might be that Abigail can come back in with the data which has been provided. I think one of the issues is there are so many things which can fall within the antisocial behaviour, and antisocial behaviour can be reported through various different channels, not just the police data, and it's obtaining that data. Abby, do we have anything else additional with regard to the antisocial behaviour reports?
Well, these qualifiers, this NICL qualifiers, there's a section on this Interact dashboard which I'm using primarily to write this, that's managed by the Office for the Police and Crime Commissioner. And at that point, yes, there was not everything had one of these qualifiers attached, but because it was quite interesting what was there, I didn't want to not include it at all. But I can subsequently, because this is a developing data set, I can go back to the OPCC and ask them why there is, you know, why so many don't have a qualifier, and is it that they, you know, they're not provided that information, or that it's not recorded, and so then we can work on that for the next time, and also we can work with the police about having any additional information with that. But that was what was available to me at that time. But yeah, we can go back and find some more information subsequently. As I say, it's a developing data set, this, so each year it improves.
Okay, right, Councillor Jones-Evans.
Yeah, I've got my last question.
Very quickly.
Yes, so it was really about, it's very, very interesting. The trading standards actually did some calculations and worked out the cost savings. And I remember in 2016, when I was doing some work on the 20 mile per hour, there was a similar tool that I looked at, which calculated the cost to the Isle of Wight of all of the injuries, the RTAs, you know, and there's the seriously, the slight, and the killed, and that came to £65 million across to to the Isle of Wight. And I'm just wondering, why is it possible, I guess, can we not have more of these tools used to actually work out the cost of crime and well, I guess it's mostly crime we're looking at, ASB and that sort of thing, because it does have a real long-term effects, and it does affect the public person. Sometimes if people see it in stark pounds, shillings and pence, they maybe have a different reaction to it. I'm looking here at the, you know, we've got I know we talked about the domestic violence earlier, but you know, our sexual offences and rapes, they're not great either, are they? Looking at the other details you put there, and those sorts of crimes can have some really long-term effects on people and cost to not only personal cost but cost to the whole society as well. So I just find that's really interesting, and I would like to see more of that.
Yeah. Okay. Just on that particular one, I noticed with the figures for sexual offences, it looks to me as if the sexual offences in the prison are in those figures. Surely that distorts. Does that not distort the figures?
Chairman, if I may, Sarah Jackson.
Yes.
Yes, they are in those figures because the prison population is part of the population of the Isle of Wight, and therefore we are required to include any offences, not just sexual offences, that occur within the prison in our crime figures.
Right. It's I mean, as a former councillor for Parkhurst, I always believed Parkhurst was quite a relatively sleepy place with low crime, but it seems to have jumped up the scale a bit. Sorry, I've rather detracted from your question, Councillor Jones-Evans. Right.
Fine, thank you. I mean there are more things I'd like to pick up on, but I realise as we've got other members want to speak. Okay.
Sheila Weedle would ask a question.
Hello, thank you very much for this report. There was just one quick thing I wanted to ask to do with town and parish councils. On the background, it was recommended the last time the partnership be requested to look at ways of enhancing its working relationships with town and parish councils. Can I just ask that this still remains a priority?
I mean, I can answer that. We do have engagement with the town and parish councils. We have a representative on our Prevent board. We have representatives on our various working groups. I know Andrew is on as well, who coordinates a lot of that, and he might want to come in on that. So yes, we have certainly engaged with the town and parish councils. Remembering this is a strategic partnership looking at general crime and disorder figures across the island and hotspots, rather than everything going on in an individual local level, because there may be priorities within town and parish councils which are not necessarily island priorities when we're looking at all of the data, which we do appreciate. We were going to do some further work with presenting to the town and parish councils at IWOC. Because COVID did hit us, that was postponed for a short period of time, and we will put that in place at some stage. I am conscious that the teams are actively involved in a lot of COVID-19 work at the moment, but that is something which is still ongoing. We are still engaging with the town and parish councils, but if there is perhaps something more specific which you are looking for, then perhaps I'm happy to take any comments on that. Chairman, would you mind if I just ask Andrew to come in? Is that okay?
Yeah, fine. Thank
you. Don't know whether you want to add anything, Andrew.
Hello, yes, hi. Yeah, I think Amanda summed it up quite well there. It's probably worth to note as well that through the violence reduction unit work, we're liaising with two provisions that are coordinated by our town and parish councils as well, youth provisions there. So we've also made that link this year with those parish councils as well.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Can I just say one more thing, please? You say you're going to go through IWOC. There are some town and parish councils that I represent that are on the HALC, Hampshire Association of Local Councils. So could I please request that we are asked to join in that and included in that, please?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Thank you. Just on a technical side, just on a technical side, someone is either shuffling papers or whatever, and we're picking up a noise on the microphone. So I don't know.
Chair, it's the Chief Executive. If I can help, it's Superintendent Jackson, because she's on the phone. It might be difficult for her to mute her phone, but Sarah, I don't know if you can.
I'm muting as I speak.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
All right. Right. Jones, Julie Jones-Evans. Have we dealt with one more quick question?
Not yet, Chair. No, if there's time, I'd like
We're
one,
obviously
please.
about to.
Thank you very much. Yes, it was just really going on one of the priorities, which is of particular interest to me, is the road safety, and just sort of to pick that up from the report itself, on page 38 of the report, which is page 56 of members' papers, it talks about the outlier for the killed and seriously injured on England's roads, which we do know because Councillors Quirk and Beston, we were talking about that last week at our other scrutiny committee. But actually, we're also an outlier. You know, we have higher than national rates for serious and slight casualties from road traffic accidents, especially in the 0 to 24-year-olds, as well as pedestrian and motorcyclists. So it's actually a bigger picture than initially that I was aware of, and I was just really wondering how are we going to tackle this?
Chairman, Superintendent Jackson, if I may.
Yes.
Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yes, please. Yep.
Brilliant, thank you. I mean, I know that road safety is a concern for the community and for members, as I often get correspondence around it. But what I would want to reassure members is that we have a really active road safety forum, which is a partnership forum, and that's led by Tracy Webb from our fire team, and they do an awful lot of work around prevention, an example of which is working with the ambulance service in relation to things, courses such as called Biker Down, which you talked about, motorcyclists and injuries there, and that targets groups across the island in relation to motorcyclists, not only to talk to them about what would they do if they had an accident in terms of first aid, but actually, of course, talking to them about the dangers of speed and personal responsibility. In addition to that, my own team here, the Roads Policing and Armed Response team, have a clear patrol strategy, and they complete and have completed throughout 2020 numerous enforcement days to try and get that message across around particularly speed, but also around manner of driving, safety of vehicles, and that's seen our specialist teams from the mainland also come over with motorcyclist officers to really focus that attention, and they've been successful in getting that message across, albeit obviously our numbers of those incidents, we would like to have as few as we possibly can, accepting the nature of driving. Right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I've actually written to Sarah recently about. Sorry. I've written to Sarah recently about this issue, and particularly with getting the 20 mile per hour in certain places across the island. So thank you.
Councillor Peace, do you want to add anything before we move on to the next item?
No, thank you, Chair, for asking. I think Amanda and the team have covered things very thoroughly, and we'll obviously be answering any other questions later on.
Right. Can I just thank Amanda and her team very much indeed. And you know, some people have taken time, although they haven't actually been required to answer questions at this stage. But thank you very much indeed. We have a recommendation that the strategic assessment 2019-20 be considered, scrutinised, updated, plan for 2022 be acknowledged, and the committee confirms that it's satisfied that the partnership is fulfilling its statutory duty. I would like to, I'd like a proposal for that.
Happy to propose that, Chairman.
That's who's that?
Or second. Councillor Besson, second.
Who was that?
I believe Councillor Quirk proposed as I did, but I'm quite happy to second that item,
Right,
Chairman.
Okay, that's fine. Do we need to do is there anyone who is against that proposal? No. Right. Well, then we'll take that as carried by everyone. Right. Thank you very much. Can we move on now to the Highways PFI contract report? Who wants to kick off with that?
I will, Chairman.
Right, Councillor Ward.
Thank you very much. What I would like to say is in the media fairly recently, the Isle of Wight was recognised as having the most improved roads in the country. And I think that's something that we can be very pleased about and congratulate our PFI team and our contract management team on being able to achieve that. So that's no small achievement when you consider the state of our highways before the PFI started. Mr. Horton and Mr. Gillespie from Island Roads are present and happy to answer any questions. And I know Ms. Dando is here as well. So please shoot with questions and hopefully they'll be able to answer them all. I'm sure they will be.
Well, I'm glad you're asking people to shoot questions to them because normally you get shot as well. It's very unfair, I think, sometimes. Anyway, does anyone have any particular questions about Highway PFI, I mean? No? Oh, hold on. Yes, we have. Is that Councillor Debbie Andre?
It is indeed. Thank you, Chairman. Okay. Thank you for this update that was requested at our last meeting. I refer to page 73 of our papers, page 3 of the report, item 1 under the core investment period. Work has continued on carriageways and footways that were outstanding at March 2020. Well, as we know, originally the CIP was due to finish at 2020. We also have confirmation that milestone 14 has not yet been signed off by the Isle of Wight councils. It's not completed. Can you advise what penalties and non-payments have been paid to date? That's my first question. Also, we've been told that considerable savings have been made within the contract, renegotiating of the contract. Is this in any way linked to the 2 performance payments on completion of milestone 14 of both £10 million and £20 million? Have those completion payments been made? And if so, are there savings over and above that? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I come in there? Colin Rowland.
Yes, Colin Rowland, yes.
Yes, just to answer the first question. The actual milestone 14 not being signed off is due to discussions we're having around structures. So it's around retaining walls and bridges. The requirements of the carriageways and footway programme have been met as far as milestone 14 are concerned. So the issue really is around some conversations around bridges and some retaining walls, and we're having conversations at the moment about how we can best meet that requirement. In terms of penalties, they don't carry penalties. It's the milestone 14 effectively signs off an amount of money that is then available for the OPCO to continue the investment. In terms of savings, no, the savings are as a result of the work that we've been doing with Island Roads for the past 3 or 4 years in identifying ways in which we can save from the PFI initiative, which is quite difficult because the way that the PFI is set up is that it remains whole throughout its but throughout its life period of 25 years. So I think it's a recognition really that we've worked well together with Island Roads to identify up to £1.5 million a year in savings through that process.
Right.
If it helps, Chairman, I can answer your final point as well.
Hold on, Mr. Horton.
I was just picking up on your final point regarding the payments you refer to. The question is actually a structured finance question. They are payments that are part of the structured finance of the project and relate to, in effect, the way the loans are structured, and certain criteria had to be met some time ago in relation to those that those payments were made. So that they're not performance payments, they're payments that relate to the payment of what's known as a capital contribution, which is the Isle of Wight's contribution to the overall funding of the project and the investment required associated with the project. So they're not performance payments as such. They're they go towards paying back the loan that's been borrowed to undertake all of the work.
Right. Councillor Andre, I've got 3 more people who want to answer questions.
Just one supplementary, if you may indulge me.
As long as it's quick.
Yes, thank you. Can I have a confirmation that the monthly unitary charge payments then, in that case, have been adjusted to reflect this? Because data shows that they have steadily risen every month of each year since April 2013.
I think, Chairman, may I just come in there? I think it relates back to Mr. Horton's comments about the way that the finance is structured. That haven't been any requirement for a reduction because the performance has been as it's required through that process. So the impact of milestone 14, as Mr. Horton has said, is around bulk payments as a result of meeting certain milestones, and it isn't to do with the unitary charge.
Right. Okay. Right, Councillor Paul Fuller.
Thank you, Chairman. Hope you can see me. Just a question that a lot of residents raised with me. Resurfacing of carriageways. On occasions, I know of several roads that was classified as being a priority 3 years ago and has still not been resurfaced. The question I really want to ask is how can a road that at one stage be classified as a priority 3 years on be no longer considered a priority? It's a very naive question, I know, but it's something that a lot of residents come to me asking questions about, and I was just wondering whether you could give a response to that, please. Thank you.
Right, who's going to deal with that? I can't see anyone.
I'm happy to pick that up, Chair, if that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
The identification of the works we do is based on technical surveys. So they're machine surveys that are done on an annual basis that look at the relative condition of carriageways. In effect, what we're required to do is to do works to maintain an average condition. Therefore, there are a number of factors that impact on that. The survey results that come out, and they do change year on year based on the amount of work done. And in particular, certainly you will see it at this time of year, less so now, but certainly more so at the start of the project in particular, when you see deterioration due to the action of freeze, thaw and water. So you find certain parts of carriageways deteriorate more quickly than others. So that changes the priorities. The other factor that historically has been an issue, becoming less so now, but certainly is a factor, is the fact that in maintaining the average condition across the island, we are required to maintain an average on each type of road in each hierarchy. So that's true from the major A roads through to the less trafficked smaller roads, and in each district. So works have to be prioritised to maintain those averages and to maintain the average in each of those effectively 6 districts and 4 categories, 24 different categories. So therefore changes are made on the basis of those 2 criteria.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I think the issue that I'm raising is if you class a road as being a priority and you tell local residents that a road is a priority. You send letters out to residents saying this work is going to happen, and it doesn't happen year after year after year. They're going to ask questions, and again, I don't really think that you've responded to the question. I think that I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't provide me with a response that I can go back to my residents to say, well, this is why it happens. You know, if a road is classed as a priority, it still remains a priority 3 years on, or it should do. You know, roads don't repair themselves. Thank you.
If I might respond, Chair, I would be very happy to take away any examples, the specific examples, so we can look in and provide you with the detail that explains it in particular situations. And again, we talked about this at the last Scrutiny Committee. Sometimes we make mistakes with our communication, or our communication can be improved. And in examples like that, again, there are areas where we need to look upon improving the service that we provide. It would be far easier for me if you can give some specific examples, and then clearly we'd be very happy to look into that and come back to you.
I will do. Thank you, Philip.
Right, thank you. Councillor James Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. And just picking up on Councillor Fuller's point about residents' expectations, I think we all missed that old map that used to be on the Island Roads website, which explained what was happening in the next few years and describing what was going to happen. I don't think the one dot network is quite as user friendly as the old map. Anyway, that's just a comment. So I guess I'm asking a really stupid question. Page 5 of the report, page 75 of members. We've got the total length of assets in kilometres, the carriageway and footway, and then we've got the districts and what's been done to date. So basic question is, how on track are we, going back to 2013 when we entered into this PFI? How on track are we with those figures? What's been delivered to date, given the total length of assets?
Mr. Chairman, can I just come in there?
Yes.
In terms of the way that the contract's measured, which is the condition indices, we are on track for the footways and the highways and the car parks and the other main measures. As I said before, we're just in a conversation at the moment about completing the structures work, but as a whole, on the highways and the footways, which is our main focus, the contract is on track.
That's great. Chair, I've got two very quick questions, if I may. Firstly, is back in 2013, we were told there was going to be a programme of decluttering, removing excess street furniture, poles that were no longer needed, that were pointing to places that were no longer there. Is there an update on that? And secondly, just looking at the asset register, posts, seats, benches, and so on, on page 6, page 76 of members' reports. I just wonder where barriers, for instance, the Coppins Bridge barriers come into that. I wasn't sure where they if that comes under bridges, or I just would like to know where they come in, please. Thank you.
Could I bring Mr. Horton in there?
Yes, I'm happy to answer that. To answer your first question, there has been a programme of decluttering. If you have some specific areas that you have a particular interest in, I'll be very happy to get someone to have a look and come back to you. I can't, off the top of my head, give you the exact details as to what has been done where on the island, but certainly a significant proportion of the decluttering has been done. If you have some specific concerns or areas of interest, I'll be very happy to report back on those. In terms of Coppins Bridge, the particular, without knowing the exact structures you're talking about, or the barriers you're talking about, I assume you're talking about the parapets to the bridge.
The railings, yeah.
Yeah, they get assessed as part of that particular structure, and the condition of those has to meet certain standards. The technical standards, standard called TD19, which has certain standards for vehicle containment, so they would be covered under the review of the structure itself.
Okay, thank you. I'd really like to see a report on the decluttering that's happened in the length of the PFI to date, because I don't think I've seen a report. If there is an existing report, if someone could just send it to me, I'd be really grateful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jones Evans. As probing as ever, Councillor Quirk.
I, for one, think that the PFI contract's going rather well, certainly in my part of the island, and the irritations of things not getting done have actually gone away now. My comment is really about the horticulture and the grass cutting. We had at the Environmental Forum, and I think Steve Ashman may have been there, but maybe possibly missed that one. We had a mad professor talking about clearing the grass away so that you encourage wildflowers. That's not something that we actually do, but it's possibly something that would be good for the encouraging wildflowers on our verges if we actually remove the grass that we cut. Just an observation.
Okay, right. Sheila Weedle, next.
Hello, yes. It's only really a comment on the structures. And it was just really to say a big thank you for working in partnership, Isle of Wight Council Rights of Way and Island Roads, especially on the B314 Alveston cycle track replacement bridge works. Also worked with my horse group to replace this whole route, which now makes this cycle track from Sandown to Newport completely usable for off-road riding, cycling, walking. So it's really a big thank you that you've actually worked in partnership, Isle of Wight Council Rights of Way and Island Roads, and they've done a fantastic job. So it was just a comment really on that. So thank you.
Right. I think that there are no more questions on that. I will make one comment. Is when we were back in the days when we could actually do a bit of B&B. I have had cyclists staying with me, and they say the roads on the island are the best in the country, and that's why we've got so much lycra flying around the place in the summer. But thank you very much indeed. The recommendations, unless any recommendations come forward, I think we can just note this report, and so unless anyone disagrees, this report is noted. No, right.
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you very much. No clamours for dissension there, so that's good. Waste contract is the last one before we'll have a break. To consider the performance report in respect to the waste contract presented by the Director of Neighbourhoods and the Cabinet Member for Environment, Heritage and Waste Management. And I think there is something, I think that there was something that extra will be, I think, no, sorry, it's not the waste, it's the beach strategy, it's something else. Right, okay, waste contract. Who's gonna deal with that one?
Thank you, Chair. I'll defer to Councillor Hastings, I think, to start with.
There we are.
Thank you, Chairman.
I'm glad we said that, because in my notes I've got Councillor Ward, but Councillor Hastings.
He gets the blame for everything else, so. Okay, thank you, Chairman. Right, well, what we got here is the Q2 waste contract performance, July to September 2020. And even though we've been in a COVID-19 pandemic, services continue with no disruption. Except for the household waste recycling centres in the first lockdown, had to close for a short period of time, but officers rapidly developed a booking system, which has now been highly successful and indeed received multiple compliments for creating a COVID-safe operating environment. And no queues, I hasten to add, which was previously a problem and was spoken about on this very committee, I believe. The booking system was so successful that our strategic manager for environment and waste was invited through the LGA to talk nationally on the system to the Association of Public Service Excellence. And we have our strategic manager for waste here somewhere. I can't see her at the moment, but she's here somewhere, I'm sure, who will take any questions, and glad to. And one other thing I'll just briefly point out, in the paper we have 63 compliments, 37 complaints, and only 1 to stage 2. That's quite a good balance, I would say. Thank you, Chairman.
Right. Any comments on the waste contract? No, I mean, I do have one, and that is there is a something on the web which where people on the island take photographs of fly tipping, and a very serious crime, as far as I'm concerned, is fly tipping. I think it's the most disgusting antisocial habit.
Absolutely.
I wonder whether we could look at introducing some sort of system so that anyone who picks up waste from a house has to produce a document that is signed and copies kept by the householder and the waste contractor, and then then the householder has a responsibility to log it in a central system, so that the contractor then has to log that has been taken to the dump and not just chucked into the hedge somewhere. I'm sure it's a very, very small minority who do that, or private individuals. I don't know whether just something like that could be looked at.
It's an interesting suggestion, and of course it would be good to point out at this moment that when you get rid of your waste in that manner, as the householder, you do remain responsible for that waste, even if said contractor does dump it on the side of the road. The person that took up that contract, if you like, is still responsible. However, interesting that what you're saying, and it'd be good if we could tie that up so that it's watertight in a system that we know where that waste has gone. Perhaps if Natasha is on the line, I don't know if she is. If not, perhaps Colin might like to comment on that. Hi, Natasha.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Councillor Hastings. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. I'm never sure if my microphone's on or off these days. There is a system in place by law. All waste carriers, that is anyone who collects waste from a household, must have a waste carrier's license. These are registered with the Environment Agency, and there's an open register that all householders can check that the person picking up their waste is a registered waste carrier. Only waste that's carried by a waste carrier can be taken to any of the commercial or council-owned waste treatment sites on the island. This is why we do start finding fly tip, particularly at this point in time, because there are a number of persons who don't understand their obligations to pick up waste, and they collect things and then are turned away from places like the recycling centres and the commercial waste centres because they don't have waste carriers licenses and are illegally collecting waste from households. So the waste carrier system exists. All households should ask for a waste transfer note when somebody collects their waste, same as businesses, and you should make sure that that waste transfer note indicates what you've had collected and that you take note of the number plate and the company that have taken your waste. So then if you do see it on the Isle of Wight fly tipping Facebook page, which I keep an avid eye on, you can quickly identify that that was your waste, it was taken away, and you know who it was taken by, and then we can properly investigate that and start bringing those people into the appropriate investigative process for fly tipping.
Yeah, it doesn't, of course, catch the private individual who then just goes and dumps something. Right, I'm afraid I missed some people. I think Councillor Quirk, did you want to make a comment?
Oh, you missed me.
Oh, and then I've got Councillor Jones Evans, then Councillor Fuller, and then Sheila Weedle. So, Councillor Quirk, did you want to make a comment?
No, I think the only thing that jumped out at me was the number of food waste carriers that weren't presented, which suggests that people are putting it into their general waste, which I think is rather unfortunate. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Jones Evans.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Hastings, and also thank you to Natasha for this report. I mean, it's just fantastic, isn't it? Our figures are improving. I mean, they're already good, even if a couple of years ago, but they're getting better and better and better. And I think particularly noteworthy is to say that the work that's been done with trade waste collections,
Mm-hmm.
because that's actually the thing. If we can tackle business waste, that's actually that's about 80% of all waste that's produced. So that's the making inroads in there is particularly good. As actually was going to pick up on what Councillor Quirk just mentioned was about the food waste not being that not being diverted into the composting system, and what can we do about that? And is it in particular locations? Because obviously I've got a very urban ward, and you don't always see the caddies out because they are on very narrow streets, and they as the reports picked up, the caddies tend to get blown away or go missing very easily. So I'm just wondering, is there a strategy of looking at that, and have we got any detail regarding where the issue is, as in location issue? So that's my question, please, Councillor Hastings.
I think you'll find that's one for Natasha to pick up.
Okay.
But I agree, and it probably is, and it's very much more in an urban area. It's difficult, isn't it? To the food caddies, they can, as you say, they get blown about and end up halfway down the road. It is.
Yeah, I think that's why it's important, and it's in our island plan. That any new developments, especially in urban areas, should have sufficient bin storage. So that is something I know when we sit locally, we're very hot on. But I think it's really important that new developments do have this storage, because you don't want to be in a flat with stinking waste for a week, do you?
Okay, I think that probably happens. Natasha.
Hello, thank you, Chair. Just on the food waste question, we do every 5 years composition study, and I'm more than happy to share the results of that with you, Councillor Evans, if you'd like to see those. One of the key things that we found recently is that 25% of what is thrown out in the general waste, that being the black bag system, is actually food waste. That means a quarter of what is going into that general waste just shouldn't be there, and is perfectly capable to be composted and turned into electricity, which is something we really need to work on. The big issues that we also see in that composition study, because we do it round by round, we look at the demographic areas, so we do understand which age groups are not presenting food waste, and we understand which age groups have the larger problems with food waste. We also have had a lot of problems over the lockdown period where people have not been applying for replacement food bins when they could do. So we're going to be working with Keep Britain Tidy in the new year. We're doing some campaign work with them. We're going to roll out some new food waste campaigns on the island. But equally, we're going to keep trying to push that message that your food waste, gets collected weekly. There's no need to leave it for 2 weeks in your general waste bin. You can have it collected weekly. We take all the excess. But even better than that, buy less food if you find yourself throwing away a lot of food waste. And that really will help the issue significantly.
Right, Councillor Fuller.
If I could ask a follow-up very quickly, Natasha, if you are in an urban area and you haven't got a food bin, so it keeps disappearing and blowing away, will it be collected if you just put out a compost bag with your food waste in? Will that still be picked up, or does it have to be in a bin?
No, absolutely. The same way that we collect excess food waste in a carrier bag, if you just put a carrier bag of food waste out on top of your green bin, black bin, or on top of your goal sack, but please not overnight, because they will get torn apart, then they will be collected.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Councillor Fuller. Can't hear you. You're muted.
I think I'm back on. According
to
my.
You are now.
Thank goodness for that. I wouldn't want you not to hear me, Chairman. Two questions. First of all, garden waste collections. Can we have some feedback on that? I know that last year the Isle of Wight Council purchased a new lorry to collect food waste. Garden waste. The second question that I've got is, in my ward, I have a lot of second homeowners. I have a lot of people staying, a lot of visitors and things. And is there scope to have one-off collections on an occasional basis where we can perhaps create a little bit more revenue coming into the council to be able to discard of waste that is being collated in our larger properties that I tend to have quite a few of in my ward? Thank you.
Right, who wants to deal with that?
So just to say, the green garden waste we've done very well with. We're of course in the middle of that process right now, the renewals and new people that want to join, etc. We will have some figures on that very shortly, and Natasha might have some up to date now, which I'm sure she will let you have and answer your other question.
Right, Natasha.
Hello, I am returning. Slowly impressing the buttons. Good evening, Councillor Fuller. Thank you for your questions. So the garden waste collection service, we currently have 9,998 subscribers. Their subscriptions will last through to the 31st of March. Of those, half are on a rolling direct debit, whose will continue into the new year, and half we will be looking at renewal process starting in February. So that service is running very well and is using the full capacity of the vehicles available. In respect of your second homers who have the large properties and only want their waste picked up occasionally, we don't currently have a business case large enough to build a second vehicle, driver and fuel system in place to do that kind of occasional pickup. But what we do have is the £52 a year collection plus service, whereby the normal crew will come onto your property and collect your bins from your back door. So if you want to do that when you're not there, it saves you putting out on the day of the week when you're not around, and saves you worrying about your bins being taken back in. There is of course also the bulky waste service that will collect up to 4 items for £45, and our free reuse service for reusable items, which you can book in on a weekly basis. So there's a lot of options available, and the tips.
Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you very much. And Sheila.
Yes, well, mine is about food waste as well, I'm afraid. Well, it's disappointing that the numbers are so high. Is there anything that town and parish councils can do to encourage their residents to separate their food? Also, obviously, from the Keep Britain Tidy point of view, the Green Towns groups around the island, is there anything that they could get involved in? Because I'm sure we'd all be happy to help promote encouraging more people to use their green food waste caddies. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you've just hit the nail on the head when you use the word promote. I think that's something that parish councils can do. They have regular meetings, to discuss such matters, promote it. In my parishes, I mean, I've got a report out regularly and into the Beacon. So places like that periodically tell people. Sometimes people just don't get it, don't think, they don't know, remember, or whatever. If you just give them a nudge, explain what we can do, why we do it, and how we do it, promote it. Absolutely. Natasha, you might want to say something more on that.
Hello. Yes, we will do everything we can to promote it, and if there's something we can do more with the town and parish councils, we're happy to provide you with information to put into your newsletters for people to put, all members to put out in their regular newsletters, as well as town and parish councils. And we will also be doing the Keep Britain Tidy work, and if you want to carry any of our messaging that we do for promoting the use of your food waste caddies, making sure that we increase that amount of food waste going out, I'll be more than happy to work with any town and parish council member that would like to help carry those messages with us.
Okay, that would be really good. We'd definitely be interested in that. And just another quick point, the public bottle banks, is that Amy's remit to, I know there's not many of them about, but the actual public bottle banks, are they needed, is my question, seeing as we all should be recycling our own bottles? And is there any sort of move to remove the ones that are still left out in the public domain?
I'll just move straight into that one. We did have 65 bottle bank sites around the island back in 2015, and we've reduced that now to 21. We're not going to currently reduce that any further because we still do have a number of residents who live in those smaller properties that can't really store 2 weeks worth of glass and want to use the bottle banks. We also on those sites host a lot of the charity textile banks, which is very crucial to charities, ensuring that they've got the income that they need to move forward. So we're currently trying to maintain the level of bottle banks that we have, but we're also going to be looking at a programme next year of refurbishing most of those and looking if we can bring in additional materials to be collected at those that aren't currently collected at the curbside, to help to reduce the number of people needing to go to the tips with things like batteries and small electrical goods.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right. I've got Laura P.T. Wilcox, who's written 2 comments. The public still consider it all goes into the same place, no point in dividing it up. And also she says, we have people in Cowes who are regularly using bins in Cowes and carry rubbish up in carrier bags rather than divide waste in Cowes Cemetery. Okay. I don't think necessarily we need to comment so much on that. Dividing it up, Natasha.
Oh, hello. In terms of it all going to the same place, it clearly does not go to the same place. Laura, if you'd would like some information to share more widely about where all of our waste goes, I'm more than happy to share that with you. I know you have emailed me some other questions, which I will be responding to you separately from this on, relating to where the waste does go. Crucially, we are diverting at the moment 99% of all waste from landfill, which is a really exciting place for us to be in, and recycling 56% of that, which keeps us in the top 20% in the country for all recycling. In respect to people using litter bins for some household wastes, there are some households who actively choose not to keep particularly smelly items or unpleasant items in their homes for 2 weeks and don't want to put those in their bins. We can't prevent them from walking up the street and using the litter bins, although we do advise them not to wherever possible. But in some instances, people just choose to make that decision, unfortunately.
Right. Okay. I've got any new messages there? I think I've been missed, Chairman, said Debbie Andre. Councillor Andre.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to quickly just pick up on the fly tipping issue. Sadly, certainly in my ward, I've been notified of an increase in fly tipping. The issue that I've had is it seems to be a sort of bone of contention whether the actual location of the fly tipping, because if it's on certain premises, it's Amy. If it's on other premises, it's Island Roads. And in my case, other premises, it's the railway. What is the best way for us to actually report? You mentioned a Facebook site, but I know through previous experience that certainly Island Roads don't actually, and I can understand this, pick up comments and complaints from Facebook. So what is the best way for us to actually get some action on fly tipping when perhaps we're not absolutely sure which partnership to go to?
Chairman, I'm sure Natasha will come in on this as well, but Councillor Andre, for start, how could you possibly be missed? I always find that one of the best ways to deal with fly tipping is take a photograph, make it very clear where it is. I send it either, depending on what I make as a decision, either to the waste contract or to Island Roads. If it belongs to Island Roads, they will claim it, they will remove it, and it'll be over. If they don't, they'll let you know, and then you go to the waste contract or whatever you have to do next. So I think it's just start somewhere, but take a photo, make it very clear where it is. I know we've had some recently from Councillor Ward in Sandown, and it was, you could see from the photographs whether it belongs one side of the fence or the other. Natasha, you might want to say something about it too, I'm sure.
Certainly, thank you, Councillor Hastings and Councillor Andre for your question. There is a fly tipping reporting form that sits within the waste portal. I'll drop a link to that directly into this GIST chat bar in a moment for you, so that there is a specific reporting form that comes through to my team at the council. If you report anything there, we will divvy that up as to whether it belongs to Island Roads, belongs to us, or belongs to a different place and report it to those persons. Alternatively, if you know it's definitely on the project network and it belongs to Island Roads, you can report directly into their hub. But do be assured, if you do report those to the council's fly tipping form on the fly tipping page, we will divvy that up to the appropriate person to deal with and make sure it is dealt with as quickly as possible. But again, I cannot reiterate enough, we need to make sure that when we are asking people to come and collect our waste from our homes on a paid basis or from our businesses on a paid basis, that we all as a community make sure that we get a waste transfer note, that we know who's taken our waste, and we check that they are a licensed waste carrier. because if we all go through those measures, then every flight it can be traced back, apart from people who are individually just disrespecting their community and dumping things outside their doorsteps.
Thank you. That's exactly the answer that I wanted. Very useful. Thank you.
Well, I think probably, I don't know whether it is possible, Natasha, that any white goods must have a serial number because they're used for a guarantee. And whether one has the time or the finance to do it, but I mean, it must be all traceable in a way, a bit like a car is traceable by its serial number. But anyway, there we are. I think Councillor Jones Evans wanted one more question.
Thank you. Hello. Yes, I'm back again. Thank you for indulging me. It was just really during this lockdown, obviously we're all at home, and many people will be taking the opportunity to have an early spring clean and a clear out and a declutter. But of course, the charity shops where most we would take our bits and pieces to are closed. So I was wondering, is there any messaging we can get out through our comms about what if you are doing a clear out, what your options are during lockdown?
Stay at home.
If you're getting rid of stuff, there's things we can put out in the recycling, isn't there? The clothing, I think, but we do have some banks, so we book banks and up at Lynn Bottom as well. This might be worth just reminding people what they can do.
Absolutely, yes, Councillor. We regularly, and I'm sure Natasha will come in on this one as well. We regularly put out comms messages under the waste contract, and there's all sorts going out all of the time. That works, that's fine. We can pass that round to parish councils as well. And I'm sure, as I say, Natasha will say more on that subject, particularly with regards to textiles.
Thank you both. In regards to charity shops being closed at this time, we do need to help our community remember not to leave things on their doorsteps when they are closed. All that does is create an unwanted mess for other people. During this time when we are under that stay at home message, it is always worth everyone considering whether any trip outside is a trip worth making. And in a lot of these cases, as difficult it is to keep things in your house when you're having a clear out, if it's not causing a danger to yourself, you do need to consider whether or not right now it is the appropriate time to be going out to a charity shop or a textile bank. If you absolutely must take those things out of your house, textiles can be collected on recycling day in a clear or white sack alongside your recycling bag. That includes shoes, belts, bags, woolly hats, scarves, gloves, but not duvets or pillows. So the bulkier items we can't fit inside the trucks, unfortunately. If you do absolutely must get some of those items out of your home and it is essential, then you can book yourself into the tip to do so. Again, that is our booking system and only one person is allowed out of the car, and we do advise that people do consider carefully whether or not it is the right time to be making those trips. And as we hopefully in the next coming few months, we'll get back to a position where charity shops are open, we will hopefully be able to find it easier once more to dispose of those items.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that probably finishes that one now. Unless there are any recommendations, which I can't really feel that anyone's done that, we can just, the report is noted. Do we agree?
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chairman.
Right.
Yes, Chairman.
Yes, Chairman.
Okay.
Agreed, Chairman.
Okay, right. No dissenters. Right. We will take a 10-minute break if we may now. So we'll be back at 17 minutes past 7.
Okay.
Right, Chairman, we are back live.
We're back live, okay. Paul Fuller, you here?
Yes, Chairman, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm sure Julie is. Julie, you there?
Present and correct, Chairman.
Oh, sounds like Dad's army. Debbie?
Councillor Andre is present.
Councillor Andre, I thank you for correcting me. Councillor Hobart? Yep.
I'm here.
Fine. Stephen Hendry? Yep, right. Okay. And Councillor Quirk?
I'm here.
Yeah. And Sheila is here.
Yes, I'm here.
Right. Okay. Shall we press on? The next item is budget proposals, 2021-22. Before we move to that, I think we must appreciate that we're not in a normal situation, a normal year. I just can't. I think we should all be thanking the staff enormously for the amount of work that they are doing, extra work, and have taken off their normal, I say duties, no, their normal jobs, and helping in all sorts of other ways. And I have nothing but admiration for the way the council is being handled and run. And I do not mean that politically. I just mean that people are doing, I think, a jolly good job. However, we now move to the budget proposals, and I see Councillor Hutchinson there waiting to give us pearls of wisdom.
Well, actually, Chairman, I'm sitting here with a pen, waiting to take notes, so that I can work out how we're going to do it. I was looking for pearls of wisdom from members. Firstly, Chairman, thank you for that acknowledgement of the work that all of our staff are doing, and of course that does include the finance staff and those people who have been repurposed and have worked and are working on getting out the various support grants that have been available. We've dished out over £100 million worth of grants, and of course people will still benefit for the remainder of this financial year. And we have just posted up on our website the application forms, as the Chief Exec mentioned, so that people can obtain further support. What we're doing in terms of the budget, obviously things are very different. We, as everyone is aware, we had in the current year's budget a black hole in the order of £10 million. That is after the support that we had received from government, and we have been chiseling that away over the next few months. We're down to about £5.5 million now. Absolutely critical that we bring the budget into balance by the end of the financial year, because of course if there is an overspend, that has to be recovered in future years. Ordinarily it's recovered in the following year, but I do understand that this year we've got a slight concession in that it can be recovered over slightly longer. But our aim is to be in balance at the end of the financial year. We are still following the strategy that was set a couple of years ago. We have a medium-term financial plan. That financial plan requires a saving of £3.5 million each, and so we're building that into the budget. There's some good news and some bad news. The bad news, of course, is that the fair funding review, which we were expecting to significantly benefit us, has been postponed for the third time. And the earliest the fair funding changes will come into being is likely to be the financial year 22-23. So we got a real issue there. We've also lost, of course, the benefit that we had for the business rate retention, which benefited to the tune of about 1.9 million. So that is no longer available. But the government told us just before Christmas that to help with the pressures, and our two areas with the greatest pressure, as members will already know, are adult social care and looked after children. And they have said that if we so choose, we can raise an additional increase on the rates of up to 3% purely for paying for the additional pressures in social care. As you know, we have previously been allowed to take 6% over 2 or 3 years, and we chose to take 3% in 2 years in previous budgets. So that is all being worked on now. We have to cope with the projected loss of income because of lockdown. Obviously, none of us know how long lockdown is going to last, but if it is going to continue into the next financial year, which is entirely possible, then we will have the loss of income from our normal revenue streams, such as parking and leisure centres, to contend with. We are currently out to consultation. I think that consultation finishes on I believe the 25th of this month from memory, so just a couple of weeks' time, and we'll take into account the comments we get back there. Typically, we have to square a circle because we've got some people that say don't put the rates up, and we've got others that are looking for us to do more things. So the general principles in structuring the budget are similar to previous years in that we have identified for every single service the sort of level of savings they have to find in percentage terms and cash terms, and officers and cabinet members have been working enormously hard over the last few weeks to try and put things in place. So what we will have is a number of choices, and then we'll be actually making the final decisions on those choices over the next few weeks and putting it into our budget, which of course comes before this committee at the meeting prior to the budget setting council meeting. So that's the sort of overview of the position. I can't really add any more detail to that at this time. Thank you, Chairman.
Right. Oh gosh, my messages keep sort of right. Councillor, does any other any officer or does the leader, do you want to make any other comment on what's been said?
No, Chair. I'm sure Councillor Hutchinson has covered all the points I would have in his usual unique way.
Mr. Metcalfe?
Not, thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Not at this time, but I'd be happy to answer questions as they arise.
Okay, fine. Councillor Andre has a question.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, two points really. Obviously, we do appreciate that the pandemic has had a huge effect on our finances, not just for now, but obviously there will be an ongoing effect from that. Undoubtedly, reserves will be needed for shortfalls. What sort of stage are, what sort of level are our reserves at currently? My second point is that there will be a need to embed financial resilience to avoid a Section 114 notice that none of us want.
Yes.
How are we going to be, or how are we already embedding that financial resilience?
Yeah.
Also, yeah, I'll start with that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, yes. Thanks for that question, Debbie. We've obviously had to eat into our reserves to keep us going in the current financial year. We are working on the basis that next year we will want to hold at least the minimum, that is in the order of £7 million, to stop us getting into Section 114 territory. As you know, if we do have to declare a Section 114 notice, it brings in all sorts of draconian difficulties in actually physically managing the council's business. So we will be looking to preserve that absolute minimum of financial probity, £7 million. If we are able, in the whole makeup of the budget, to bring in a little bit of resilience, because we know that things will occur that will need us to manage them. If we can build in a little bit, we will do. We have to build in those sorts of demands with the pressures that we have in service requirements. And also we're very conscious that if we did take the full 3% plus the normal inflation levels, that's a significant increase in council tax, and the whole, every single household on the island will be impacted by that at a time when many householders will be struggling because of the pandemic. So it is not going to be, I mean, it never is an easy balance, but this year is going to be, I think, particularly challenging.
Can I have a supplementary, please, Chairman?
Yes, as long as it's no longer than one line long.
Okay, I'll rise to that challenge.
Get on with it.
You have a supplementary, and you carry on.
Thank you, Chairman. As we know, and as I'm sure a lot of members of the public are aware, we have over the past few years had to achieve some quite extraordinary savings. As part of our budget strategy moving forward, I would like to think that departments are being asked to look at innovative ways of generating revenue rather than achieving further cuts.
Yes, we look across the board at everything. We look at whether we can do things differently so that we achieve a similar result with constrained resources. We look at what kind of reasonable increases we can put on the services that we deliver, so that if you are getting a service, you pay for it. Now, that is not universally popular, of course, because it means things like charges for parking, sometimes in areas where we haven't had it before. It creates unrest. It creates a problem. What we try to do is be equal across the board. We also look really hard at how we can bring in additional revenue from things we haven't done before. And a really good example of that is the Green Waste Scheme that we introduced. It's been incredibly successful to the point where we've had waiting lists and we've had to expand the scheme. So we've looked at all sorts of things. I have to say that as each year goes by, it gets more difficult to find new ways of dealing with this. And we were hoping that things like the Fair Funding Review would put things into better balance. one of the things which I haven't mentioned, but we have been looking for, was the government's review of the charges and funding for social care. And I'm afraid that one's been ducked at the moment as well, which is why we've got a bit of a patch where they're saying, well, you can add 3% to your rates to cover the sort of pressures that you know you've got. But it's a temporary fix. What we need is a long-term strategic view. But of course, government are struggling with the pandemic in exactly the same way as every single council in the land. But we will put forward proposals for a budget. It will be a legal and balanced budget, and it will be a difficult one. Thank you.
Right, Mr. Metcalfe.
Thank you, Chairman. I did just want to add to the point Councillor Hutchinson made about innovation and income generation. I think we've got a good track record of having done that over the last 4 years, but I would say to members, building on what Councillor Hutchinson said, there is so much uncertainty about next year's budget in terms of the longer effects of COVID, whether we'll get additional funding from government to do various bits of things, whether we'll even recover some of our income levels that we presently rely on around leisure centres and car parking and heritage services and those sorts of areas. So the one thing that we do have to be absolutely sure about is whatever we put forward in terms of balancing the budget next year is controllable and is deliverable and can actually be, as I say, be delivered. So it's done at as least risk as possible. What we would not want to get into, as Councillor Andre was alluding to, was Section 114 territory. I think we've got a robust deficit recovery strategy that will help us avoid that. I think we've got robust financial management and mechanisms that would allow us to be able to signpost that before we got even close to that particular position. But what we've got to try and do in terms of presenting next year's budget is make it as least risky as possible, because there are so many things in the external environment that we can't control. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, thank you very much. Councillor Jones Evans.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Hutchinson, for that rather sobering presentation. And it is without doubt this is going to be the worst year for putting a budget together since I've been on the council, be my 12th year. It's difficult to know what to say in a way, because there's so many pressures on us. Just reading the Hampshire County Council report into children's services just shows you that the extra pressures that have just come through because of the pandemic, that more children are requiring our support and care. And of course, we must do that. Now, I'm going to sound like a broken record, and I do appreciate what you just said about the fair funding review. But, it's been 5 years, I think the Chief Executive will confirm this, 5 years since we presented the report into the actual cost of physical separation, which I think was it 6.1 or 6.2 million, something like that. Mr. Metcalfe will better confirm, because it's actually his report that he presented. And we're actually desperate for that. This is the cost. It costs us that extra just to be on the same level playing field as every other local authority. And yet we were picked out by the Institute of Fiscal Studies back in June, us and Torbay, that we were going to suffer the most, the whole country, because of COVID. So not only are we got one hand tied behind our back because we don't have enough money just to be on a level playing field, we are now, doubly damned because of our island situation again with the COVID. And I just don't know what to say. But it's all very well people coming down and standing in front of the Clumbine building and having a photo opportunity and saying, yes, Island deal, but I want to see it. And I know you, and I know the leader of the council has written to the government, but we need to be doing that every week. Just being really boring. Just going on about it, because that's all we should be doing, getting our fair money.
Okay.
Actually, we're just with your indulgence, Chairman.
Yes.
We are pretty well doing that almost every week. I have seen the letters that go to the various ministries of state and to the Treasury, and the leader has written personally to the Prime Minister, reminding him of his promise. We are doing it as frequently as we possibly can. Obviously, we cannot force them to do that, but we are pointing out with things like deferring the fair funding review that gives us added pressures. And I have to say that in terms of the support, we and other councils have had enormous amounts of money that have gone directly to individuals and to businesses. But of course, when we're talking about the council budget, then we do actually need sufficient additional funding for that. Now, we have had some of that in the current financial year. We had a tranche of £4 million and another tranche of £5 million, and that went to reduce the massive black hole we had that brought it down to 10 million. So we have had recognition that we needed that money. What we are looking for is a longer term strategic change, which is the island deal repeated yearly, or even if they said we didn't have to find the savings that we've got to find to meet the loss of government grant. That sort of thing would help. So I think every single councillor is on side and backing us to try and achieve that. But so far, we've not been able to do that. We will not stop trying.
Okay.
And I see the leads here. He might want to reinforce that.
Right.
But,
can I ask very quickly, because we've only 20 minutes left before the 3-hour limit is up. I hate to say that in any discussion or debate, but leader.
I'll be very quick. I'm building on the comments by Councillor Hutchings and perhaps a little bit of reassurance. So, Conservative administration here on the Isle of Wight, Conservative MP, we have been working very closely together now on this topic. Members will have heard the MP raise the question in the House of Commons to the Secretary of State for MHCLG. I know the Chief Executive has also had consultation now with government officials. We are not letting up, and I will, should there be any developments, I will certainly ensure that they are passed on to all members. But it's quite a crucial time at the moment.
Right, thank you very much. Can I suggest that we note the budget strategy that we've been discussing? Are we agreed with that?
Agreed to note it.
Right. Okay. Anyone against noting it? No. Right. That is noted. We then move on, please. Now, these are individual items. The first one is a very important one, but they're all important. But the Forest Road, White House Road junction. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll open this and right. Firstly, may I seek your indulgence, because I would like to pass our condolences, members and officers of the Isle of Wight Council, pass our condolences to the family of the lady who died in this tragic accident. The report is clear that the accident was caused by driver error. There is no mitigation in that, absolutely clear. Secondly, the report says that the layout of the junction did not affect the outcome of the accident. So I think we have to take both those points on board. However, we recognise that there is public concern about some elements of the junction. So we will consider what measures can be considered to make it more safe, and I say more safe purposely. For example, we could look at stop lines, the vision splay, speed limits, all are factors that we will consider. And that's about it, Chairman.
Thank you. My own thoughts of this, I use that junction, or have done over a number of years, and I know it well, and I'm I'm really surprised. Well, I think one solution could be actually to have stop signs all the way around and a mini roundabout painted on the road. I don't know. Anyway, does anyone have any other views about this? No? Right.
Chairman, can I come in here? A local councillor, John Hobart.
Yes.
My own feelings, I've had concerns about White House Road for a number of years, as the Highways Department know. My feeling is there's a number of stable blocks and farms there, and a very dangerous junction at Coleman's Road, some 600 or 700 yards to the north of the Forest Road junction. That road should be it is a minor road. It joins onto an A road. It should be 40 miles an hour. That's my feeling. And also Betty Haunt Lane, which is the junction on the other side, another minor road. Both of those roads, in my opinion, should be 40-mile-an-hour roads. Other than that, improved signage. The signage at the moment could well be improved, perhaps with the addition of rumble strips and things like that. I think the idea of traffic lights is complete overkill out in the countryside and incredibly expensive and not necessary. It also could lead to rear-end shunting, where traffic builds up on the fast Forest Road. That's my feeling as the local councillor, and I think the highways are aware of my concerns about the White House Road anyhow. So I leave it there.
Councillor Stewart. Sorry, Councillor Stewart, did you want to?
I was mindful of your time. Each of these items on the Cabinet agenda will, of course, be considered on Thursday. So members probably may need to, that is, the Cabinet members may need to deal with the full detail then, or will duplicate. If there are any specific questions, obviously from Scrutiny, we would be pleased to take them. And I have to say, in respect of Councillor Hobart and the reduction of speed, I know that is one aspect that's been introduced into the discussion, as has the stop signs, which are very sensible for the minor roads. So I think the presentation at Cabinet will answer a lot of questions, albeit I recognise Scrutiny are aware, but you've got sort of 5 items left. If there are any specific questions, I would welcome taking them, but we can deal with these on next Thursday.
Okay, right. Thank you, Leader. I think we will now move. There's no one else on the sorry, Councillor Andre, I want to move on.
It was just some clarification, if I may, Chair, just on the recommendations on that item. Recommendation 42 to reevaluate any future works following the completion of the island-wide speed review. It seems to me almost contradictory, because I would have thought that the recommendation 42 in itself would have been sufficient, because it's saying to actually reevaluate after the speed review has done, which has already been highlighted that speed is one of the main issues there. So would it make sense?
No, it doesn't say that at all. It doesn't say speed is one of the main issues.
Yeah, well, it does not make sense to just have 42 as the recommendation, to reevaluate after the speed review has been done, and to do it as a as a collective.
Yeah, Chairman may answer. There are lots of factors, as Councillor Hobart alluded to. There are lots of the factors about that stretch of road, and we will consider them all, including.
I just thought that the recommendations were a little bit clear. That's all.
Yeah. As a user of that junction, I completely concur with Councillor Ward. Right. Then the next item: permission to proceed with the commencement of compulsory purchase orders, and this was required to acquire properties in Fitzroy Street and Station Avenue, Sandown. Is there a lot to be said about this?
Yes, please, Chairman, if I may, just very briefly, it's Councillor PC Wilcox.
Yes.
I used to be responsible for housing, and I doubt a lot with compulsory purchases. We made super good profit from the compulsory purchases that we did. Please, can I ask why this particular person that we're doing the compulsory purchase on has a number of properties that we could do compulsory purchase? Why are we only choosing to do one in his name rather than all of them? Because it costs the same amount of money. So why aren't we hitting it all in one stone? Thank you.
Right. Cabinet member, who's going to deal with this? No.
I'm happy to do so again.
Right, Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, this is a cabinet matter and will be discussed on Thursday. As has been in the press already, this is a start to a new and vibrant strategy. There are premises like this all over the Isle of Wight, but the council was determined that we will not have this. This blights our island. There'll be a lot more information coming forward at the meeting on Thursday. But I do thank Councillor PC Wilcox for that question. She's absolutely right, and I'm sure she's got places in her area she'd like seen in this way as well.
Yeah, White Gates. Right. Mr. Metcalfe.
Chairman, minor comment if I may. I think part of the limiting factors on CPOs is you actually have to have the money in the bank to be able to proceed with the CPOs. Yeah. So, you know, we can only do one at a time and we can only allocate a certain pot of money. We've already heard how tight the budget is likely to be next year. So we've got to be proportionate in that sense. Thank you.
Right. Okay. I don't think there's anything more that needs to be said about this because it's cabinet. It's coming out of the cabinet. Beach management strategy. I'm sorry to rush, but we've got to rush. Councillor Hastings.
Mindful of time, Chairman, so I will simply say very pleased to see that there's a strategy, but there's some words missing there. It is also, as well as a strategy, it is an action plan. It's got a couple of things that we're looking at. I must say thank you as well to RNLI, who are going to do the audit right across the piece and for no cost to the council. There are one or two matters that we've amended to, on beach marker buoys and beach cleans, and I will leave it open to questions from there. And I think we do have Sean Newton on the call as well, should he be required.
Right. I've got a document here which lists cleansing frequency in all sorts of beaches on the island. So I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that, but Councillor Quirk.
Yes, just under the legal implications, I think we should include the Environmental Protection Act 1990 and the Code of Practice that comes out of that 1999, because they actually set the standards for, which is one of the elements here.
Right. Now, I've got I know Councillor Andre has got a comment, please, but before that, Councillor Jones-Evans, can I ask to extend the meeting by 30 minutes? I'll have to ask, can we extend the meeting by 30 minutes? To Mr. Thistlewood. We will then need an agreement for that.
So can I formally propose that, please, Chairman, that we extend the meeting for a maximum of 30 minutes so we can do justice to the other items on the agenda. Looking for a seconder.
I'll second that, Chris.
Right. Is anyone against that? No? Right. Okay. Then we'll extend the meeting by 30 minutes. And the reason I go with anyone against that is I don't have people. I can't see people saying yes or no, and I don't want to spend 5 minutes going through us asking people whether yes or no, going through each camera on and off. So we extend by 30 minutes. So have we finished with the beach management strategy, or do we want to ask more?
Can I ask my question, please, Chairman?
Yes, of course, Councillor Andre.
Okay, just very briefly.
As long as it doesn't take 30 minutes.
No, it won't. Councillor Hastings quite rightly referred to the marker buoys. We have had incidents all over the island. Actually, last year when people, well, the year before last, actually now, when people were able to come. that did highlight the need for marker buoys, and in conjunction with that, it was identified that the pleasure boat bylaw actually needs amending. Obviously it's a government bylaw, but we do need to lobby to get that amended to include jet skis, because although there is an implication that jet skis are covered under the pleasure boat bylaw, it's not actually implicit in that bylaw. But I'm delighted to see that we are going to be having now a beach management strategy. Thank you.
Chairman, I will check that with officers, but my understanding is that we don't talk about jet skis specifically. We talk about powered watercraft, which actually a jet ski is, excuse me, and so is a boat, and so is a speedboat, etc. So it should be covered, but I will check on that and do whatever needs to be done.
Right. I must apologise to Councillor James Evans, who wanted to speak about an item on the compulsory purchase item, but I missed it. I do apologise to you, but we will move on. Any more about beach management? No. Public Health Annual Report, that's slipped till February. Now, Isle of Wight parking places.
Yes, please, Chairman.
Who was that?
Councillor Fuller, local member.
Right, Councillor Fuller. Can I just want to get Councillor Stewart say, and then you can come in, Councillor Fuller. Councillor Stewart, you want to say something?
No, just to repeat, actually, this will be considered in some depth on Thursday. Councillor Ward will be able to give you the strategy here. I thank you, Chair, for sharing with me your thoughts about one particular area. There is a fundamental principle here, which I'm sure members have picked up. We want to make sure in these difficult times that we're being fair across the island, and that everybody, if you look around the island at Esplanade, Ryde, Shanklin, well, pretty well everywhere else apart from one area, we have a clear approach. But it's an interesting discussion to be had because, and I think we're going to refer to Gernot, I'm listening with interest to what Councillor Fuller says, because we've got a village and we've got an Esplanade, and I found that quite interesting, and I've already said to Councillor Ward that's an opportunity to consider that. So I don't wish to take Councillor Fuller's thunder, and I'm sure Councillor Ward will be able to respond mindful of time.
Right. Councillor Ward, do you want to say anything now, or do you want to wait till the debate?
I will run through, Chairman, if I may. The parking places order relates to our last 2020 budget, which was agreed by full council. One principle the council wishes to abide by is fairness and consistency. So all communities at the moment, all communities currently in the same area, some of them seem to differ, okay, for no discernible reason. The lack of fairness means that some residents pay and others do not, and that is not fair. Of course, nobody wants to pay more, but I'm sure all members realise that councils are under financial pressure. So a shortfall in one area means other areas have to pay more. And I'd say to Councillor Fuller, how would he justify that to other councillors that their residents would pay more while yours wouldn't pay anything at all?
Hold on. Hold on. We're not starting that to the debate, because on scrutiny we turn it on its head. We look at the whole line. We can, of course, look at individual areas, and if there is no great dissension about two of the areas, but there is about one, of course, that's where people come in. But remember, Councillor Fuller, it's not a broadcast on behalf of, with all due respect, on your Councillor Fuller and Gernot. It's a balanced.
It's a policy.
Absolutely, you would expect me to be totally fair on this, and I'm aiming to do that. Within the report, the officers have flagged up the fact that just 449 residents objected to the consultation. Elsewhere, I've known the council have lauded the fact that it receives less than 1% rate from consultees on other issues. Please note that beside the 449 objections, we've had 3,000 people sign a petition to Adam Provost's petition. The derogatory comments concerning this feedback is not only disingenuous to those who responded, but that shows a real disregard to those who put in time. I did supply a photograph of why Gurnard Esplanade is slightly different. I spoke to Wayne Whittle about this several years ago when he took over as councillor for Ryde, and he said, well, the parking meters we have in Ryde are open to corrosion from sea air. If you walk along Gurnard Esplanade 21 days of the year, it's not sea air, it's actually sea. You know, we would have 12 parking meters, which is immersed in seawater. Now, we know the maintenance of car parking meters are expensive. You know, you're talking about replacing car parking meters probably every 3 to 5 years because they are being attacked by the sea. What I would also say as well is one of the other issues that we've got is that, you know, to implement charges for esplanades, the council will have to prove that there are certain aspects. First of all, there's things like highway safety, congestion, access. That should be paramount to local authorities when they look at imposing charges for seafronts. Imposing car parking charges should not be seen as a cash cow, you know, which I think this is. The officers in the report has mentioned that they think that they're going to raise £66,000 every year on year from charges. Last year, the car parking charges on Queen's Road raised less than £5,000 alongside those at Mornington Road, which is a drop in the ocean and nowhere near the figures that officers are actually providing. The other issue that I've got supporting my local community is I've got local businesses. I've only got a handful of businesses in Gurnard. I've got a pub, a lighthouse, an ice cream van and a kiosk. You compare that to what there is available in Ryde, Sandown, Shanklin, Ventnor and Newport, it's a lot less that people can choose from. So again, there is a real disparity between what we have in Gurnard and what there is in place in other parts of the island. And that again is of concern to residents. Again, seafront parking in Ryde is used all through the year. Seafront parking in Gurnard, if you pop that down there today, you'd probably see 3 or 4 people parking their car. As soon as they see a traffic warden, what they'll do, and this is one resident that's told me, is they will drive off and you'll get no revenue at all from parking on the seafront. That's why Gurnard's very different. And I know a resolution will be being put on raising this with the cabinet. You know, I've actually summarised what I was going to say to try to save time, but I would hope that members would make these suggestions to cabinet on Thursday when cabinet meets.
Right.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. As emotive as always.
Honestly, I'm not trying to be emotive.
No, you're. There is nothing wrong with being emotive, if I may say so. Right. I've had a. Does anyone else want to? Hold on. I'll just catch up with this. Question, Councillor James Evans.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Fuller, for putting the case forward. And I do agree. I think that's quite a hefty size of response, actually, for a consultation. I remember having a particularly heated debate with Councillor Stubbins a few years ago when they were putting forward a 79 person consultation result as being a success. So I think 400 odd is very good. I just want to put this into context, though. Well, firstly, I've been paying down at Sandown Seafront all winter, Ian, you'd be pleased to hear, because I didn't realise we hadn't gone through with it on the budget last year. So there's a few extra quid in your pocket there. But I think, and I did write to you this morning, Ian, this is all linked in with not only our parking strategy from 3 years ago, 4 years ago now, but also into the new parking delivery plan, which at members of the neighbourhoods and environment scrutiny, regen scrutiny board received yesterday. Now, it's a hefty 300 odd page document, and I wrote to you today asking, could we have an all member briefing on it, please? Because I think everybody needs to understand the background to all of this, that we are looking for equity. And I'm looking for equity for Newport. When you read that report, you'll see how much Newport does actually contribute. As you know, it's a running theme with me and you and parking. But I just think that's really, really important that everyone understands this big report and the ramifications, because not only does it give the island-wide perspective, it also gives the local perspective. I think this is what Councillor Fuller is trying to put forward, that we do have individual areas around the island that do have specific needs to help their community function. So I think we need to understand that. But if I could just please publicly ask for that all member briefing on that report, that would be really, really helpful, Councillor Ward. Thank you.
Right.
Chairman, if I could just answer Councillor Evans. I've already spoken to officers about an all member briefing and they've agreed.
Right.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
I've got Councillor Debbie Andre, who's written to me with a proposal, and she wants to propose a recommendation. I would also like to put a suggestion forward to the cabinet, because that is what we're supposed to be doing. I don't want to. I'm not going to stifle Councillor Andre at all. So if you want to make your proposal, but I think it's very, very complicated for this particular meeting it's a very complicated proposal. If you could just summarise it, or if you want to make it, the choice is yours. But
thank you, Chairman. I think for the benefit of members of the public, if I could read out the recommendation.
You read out, yes.
If I would just like to highlight, though, that whilst I very much welcome a full member briefing, we have, apart from the Policy and Scrutiny Committee for Regen, I'm not aware that members have actually seen the parking strategy. I do appreciate that the parking space orders relate to 2020, but I would expect them to obviously fit with the strategy moving forward. But I will put this recommendation and I will read it out, as I say, for the benefit of the members of the public. But it was just to note that it was supplied this afternoon to you, Chairman, in advance.
Yes.
My recommendation is as follows: that corporate scrutiny requests that the Cabinet reconsiders charges proposed for Cowes Gurnard Seafront on the following grounds. 1. Within the report, there is no evidence to counter concerns over the adverse impact charges which will occur to local businesses and organisations such as Gurnard Sailing Club. Given concerns over broader opportunities to invest outlined by businesses, we consider proposals are contrary to the Isle of Wight Corporate Plan's priorities, which support economic regeneration and businesses post-COVID. Within the context of the Corporate Plan priorities, we are further concerned over the impact charges are likely to have upon residents' physical, social and mental well-being. Point 2. This committee has concerns over how costs accrued from charges will be sustainable, given the ongoing maintenance from sea air, regular flood damage and subsequent corrosive action. In light of the £66,000 revenue stream proposed, Noting that 2019-20 parking revenue was limited, we asked for a full impact assessment to consider future maintenance programme and related officer time on the costings for this enforcement. Finally, point 3, it is noted that under section 122 of the Road Traffic Regulation Act, highway authorities' powers to charge should relate to the need for public safety, reduction of congestion or to allow for traffic to pass freely, or to enable access to property. Within this report, none of these matters are addressed as grounds to comply within the framework of the Act. In response to this proposal's unpopularity, the committee asks that charges are reconsidered. This is relevant in light of updating and reassessing long and short stay town centre parking and should be a focus of the Council's parking strategy where need, demand and justification for charges in compliance with the RTRA is greater. Thank you, and I look for a seconder.
I'm happy to second Councillor Andre's proposal, Chairman.
Right. Before we go there, I would like to add to what Councillor Andre said. Before we vote on that proposal, I'd like to put another proposal. And it basically is around that we must accept that Prince's Esplanade has substantial ongoing cost for its maintenance. If it's going to continue to be there, it is a very expensive esplanade. And in the light that parking charges should be used for the maintenance, amongst other things, of the realm of which they apply, i.e. the esplanade, I think they should bear that in mind. In conjunction with Councillor Debbie Andre's proposal and the sentiments, I think it must be appreciated that Gurnard Village has a particular need for its unencumbered parking for the welfare of the pub, the yacht club, the playground on the village green, and hopefully if the cafe is ever rebuilt, and all the people who use the huts, the people who swim, people who sail. It is a very, very important asset. So what I would recommend is that we ask the cabinet to look at a compromise, and that the parking charges are only for the esplanade. Where the esplanade starts is probably in Cowes, because that's where it does. Where it ends, I'd leave it up to there. But I would suggest it's outside the village of Gurnard, allowing for reasonable facilities for people who, you know, if you're in the yacht club, you can't all park around the yacht club. So that a reasonable area can generate some money for the esplanade. At the same time, it's not seen as penalising the viability and the economic viability of Gurnard, because I think Gurnard is unique. It's not the same as as the front at Sandown, etc. Has been very well expressed. So there is a slightly different variation. Now, if you want to vote on Councillor Andre's recommendation, of course we can go ahead and do that. Or we can have a more general recommendation to the cabinet that they take note of everything that's been said at this meeting and rethink on this particular item. Mr. Metcalfe wants to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I hate to be the bureaucrat in the room, but I think what you have is you've got a formal proposal that's been seconded from Councillor Andre, seconded by Councillor Julie Jones-Evans. So that needs to go to the vote first, and then if that fails, then you're able to put your second, which is a slightly different recommendation. So
okay,
hopefully that helps clarify the situation for you.
That's all right. I knew that was coming anyway. Right. So we've had a proposal. We've had it seconded. Those people in favour of the formal proposal from Councillor Andre, and this will have to be. We have to do a named vote on this, and it's either for or against recommendation.
Councillor Andre.
For.
Councillor Beston.
Against.
Councillor Fuller.
For.
Councillor Hendry.
Against.
Councillor Hobart.
Against.
Councillor Jones-Evans.
For.
Councillor Quirk.
Against.
And Councillor Hollis.
I'll abstain.
That's 3 for, 3 against, sorry, 4 against and 1 abstention.
Right.
Chairman, you go.
So the recommendation falls, Chairman.
Right.
Can I just make a comment, Chairman, before you put?
Yes, yes. Please comment on my recommendation.
Thank you. I'd just like to pick you up on something. You mentioned about revenue being used for maintenance, but the Road Traffic Regulation Act says that charges should relate quite clearly to the need for public safety, to reduce congestion, or to enable access to property. I think the maintenance issue comes into the sustainability, but it's not something, just to be clear, it's not something that is stipulated under section 122 of the RTRA. Thank you.
Right. I seem to remember a report of not that many years back, which was pretty damning about the condition of Prince's Esplanade. And I would like to think that if we have parking charges, or if they are put there, that money will go towards the maintenance and continuation of Prince's Esplanade, which with the battering it gets from the sea and the corrosion for the railings, etc., is pretty substantial. Would any officer, is an officer like to make a comment on that?
Chairman, again, it's the Chief Executive, if I may.
Yes.
I think we can bring this out more clearly in the report to Cabinet, but I think the provision of the parking spaces is allowed under the Road Traffic Act. The very fact that they're there means they've got to be maintained and they've got to be looked after. The income derived through on-street car parking spaces has to be used to maintain highways, on-street highways and highways-related activity, and that's so the income would go against that. And as we've heard earlier, the council has a huge expenditure against highways and highways activity, so this would offset some of that particular expenditure against the highway activity from on-street parking. But I think we should, in the light of Councillor Andre's comments, just clarify that at Cabinet when we come to discuss it on Thursday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. I mean, I don't need a vote on mine. I mean, we just on my comments, if people would just say we put that forward to the Cabinet, we put it forward to the Cabinet. Anyone have any?
Yeah, I'm happy to put forward your recommendation to the Cabinet or to back you up there, Chairman.
I think it should go to a vote because I don't support it.
Okay, right. Well, I've put forward my recommendation.
I'll second it, Chairman.
Right, we move to a vote.
Thank you. Councillor Andre.
Can I ask that we just repeat the recommendation, please? Sorry to be a pain.
The recommendation is a compromise that the parking charges are only for the Esplanade and not for Gurnard Village, and that would have to be determined by the Cabinet of where one starts and the other finishes, and that the Cabinet rethinks the extent of chargeable parking area on the Esplanade itself, not the and in relation to the area occupied by the village. In other words, that we don't have car parking charges in the village, but at some stage on the esplanade, we have car parking charges, so that some much needed revenue can be produced, hopefully, to keep the esplanade in the state which we all want to see it in. Right. Hold on, I've lost sound.
I can hear you, Chair, if that helps.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I can hear you as well, Richard.
Right.
Yes, Chairman. Yeah.
I will propose, if that's all right, if I propose my own recommendation.
Thank you for the clarification, Chair. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.
And is Councillor Jones Evans, are you still seconding that?
Yes, I'm still seconding that, Chairman.
Right, we move to a vote.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Andre?
Abstain.
Councillor Beston?
Against.
Councillor Fuller?
Against.
Councillor Hendry?
Abstain.
Councillor Hobart?
Against.
Councillor Jones Evans?
For.
Councillor Quirk?
Against.
And Councillor Hollis?
4.
Thank you. That's 2 for, 4 against, and 2 abstentions.
There we are. Okay.
Falls.
Right. So we move on now to the forward plan. To identify any item contained in the published forward plan that would benefit from early consideration within the work plan of either this committee.
Oh, Chairman, may I?
Yes.
Sorry, are we not looking at the report from Hampshire County Council regarding the report on the partnership? It's item 9 on the cabinet.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have that in my running order. Let me get back to the.
Chairman, that's not an agenda item for the cabinet, that any of the papers that we've got in front of us.
Yeah. Chairman, it's the Chief Executive again, if I can help with that one, perhaps.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So that item is actually presented as part of what will be Councillor Brading's Cabinet member update to Cabinet. So it is just meant as an update paper. We will bring it back as part of the report, the quarterly performance report in February, to allow members the chance to scrutinise and have a look at the detail of that paper. But Councillor Brading specifically wanted it circulating so people could see it in advance of the Cabinet meeting. So I would suggest you leave that item till February.
Oh, thank you, that's really helpful. I did read it though, very good report.
Right. Okay, move to the forward plan. Any items there identified benefit from early consideration?
I think we've already had a really good quick discussion with Councillor Ward that all members are going to be involved in a briefing regarding the parking reports. I think that's really important. That's coming up in February, I believe.
Yeah.
And I've asked that all the paper, that report gets circulated to all members, not just the ones on the scrutiny last week.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have anything else to say on that? No. And then the urgent cabinet members delegated decision, Connect for Communities COVID winter grants. Have you got that as an agenda item in front of you?
Chairman, that's for mainly for noting.
That's for noting, right.
Information to the members.
Have members of the committee had that in front of them?
Yes, Chairman, it's on the agenda.
That's good, right. I'm sorry, I'm working off a different sheet at the moment. So, right. Do we note that?
Yes, Chair.
Right.
Chair, I think Councillor Brading has asked whether or not he could just say a few words about that.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just say thank you to yourself and to Councillor Churchman as Chair of this Children's Services Scrutiny. We didn't have sufficient time between the government releasing funds to us to go through the normal procedure. We wanted to get as much money out as we could before Christmas to cover the free school meals over Christmas and a community grant. So I'm very grateful to you agreeing to that we were allowed to just slightly tweak the timescales a bit on this one. So thank you.
Okay, right. Thank you, Councillor Brading. Right, and then finally, so that is noted. Do we agree that's noted?
Agreed.
Agreed. No one not wished that to be noted. And then the work plan. Work plan for 2021. And any fine other items for inclusion. Does anyone else have any items on the work plan?
Propose we note it.
I've one that I think by the time we get to February, we are going to probably have a considerable item about the floating bridge, so that we can clear up myths and perhaps look a way forward where the hell we're going to go with the floating bridge.
We normally go to cows or East cows, don't we?
Well, yes, we do. Yes. Anyway, I think the floating bridge will, subject to the legal situation, that will be on the. I'd like to put that on the agenda for February. If the legal
Agreed.
situation has not finished, then it'll be on March.
Yeah, I agree.
Support that.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Members' question time.
Chair.
Sorry?
You've got Councillor Andre. You've got Councillor Andre wants to ask a question about the work.
Sorry. Yes, go on, Councillor Andre. Sorry, beg your pardon.
Thank you, Chairman. I note from the forward plan that the Isle of Wight motorcycle time trial event is due to come to Cabinet on the 11th of March. Can I just confirm that that is still the case, obviously bearing in mind that we are in the pandemic? If it is still coming to Cabinet in March, can I politely request that we add it to our 9th of March meeting? Because there has been a lot of public comment and anxiety over this, and I really do feel that it should come to scrutiny. Thank you.
Our 9th of March meeting. Okay. Yes, are we agreed?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Right.
Chairman, sorry, Chairman, it's the Chief Executive again. I wonder if you would allow us to have a discussion with the monitoring officer about that, because the event itself is actually within the responsibility of the Regeneration Policy and Scrutiny Committee, so it may be that it needs to be looked at there rather than at your corporate
yes,
scrutiny committee.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. Moving on, members' question time. I've got no written members' questions have been received. All right.
May I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. It was just regarding the amount of pressure the council's under at the moment with the COVID response, you know, the current one, as well as our ongoing recovery plan as well. And I just would like to know if we have any information regarding the forthcoming local elections, and what is the latest date that we would need to know if they're going to be going ahead in May, or they're going to be put back, as it were, just given the huge amount of work that needs to be done by our officers to make these elections happen. And you know, as we know, they do them brilliantly.
Chairman, are you happy if I come back on that one?
Yeah.
Yep, thank you. Apologies, I could have covered it under the COVID-19 update. Chairman, we expect a decision from government sometime this week as to whether the elections will proceed in May, and if they are to be slipped, when they will be slipped to. Robert Jenrick, who's the Secretary of State for Housing, Local Government and Communities, commented at a recent conference that he was in dialogue with the MP and with the Prime Minister, apologies, and expected a decision sometime this week.
Okay.
Thank you.
That answer that one, Councillor?
Yeah, that's very helpful.
All right. I don't think unless anyone's got any other business, I think we will conclude the meeting.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you
Good
very
evening,
much.
everybody. Thank you.